Hi there, my name is IC11 and welcome to my first game review. And today we shall be looking at Mafia Definitive Edition. The original one was released back in 2002 and was remade in 2020, along with other two Mafia games which were repacked into the Mafia trilogy. We will be looking at the first Mafia Definitive Edition for now, and the later two games we'll look at later on. Well, although the game has some massive changes both in graphics and some of its story perspective, it still stays true to its original form, which is almost realistic car simulation and an interesting set of missions. So let's take a deep dive in the world of Mafia. Now, before you even start the game, you are greeted with 4 types of difficulty. Easy mode, which allows you to focus on the narrative part of the game, so enemies are easier to kill and combat isn't put to priority in this case. Normal mode is a perfect balance between combat and narrative, so you don't feel like the game is holding your hand during that, while at the same time you don't feel like the game is throwing everything at you without giving you some time to prep. Hard mode puts combat and experience into priority, so you'll be facing more enemies with higher hitboxes and better accuracy than the other two. These are standard difficulties that are present in every other game in existence, so it's no big deal. However, there is one mode that stands out from the rest. Classic difficulty, which is a direct representation of how the original Mafia took place. Here you will take more damage with every car accident you get into, and the bullets also deal more damage than usual. Enemies won't show up on the map, so you'll have to rely on your eagle-eyed vision to spot them before they one-tap you. Driving assist is set to simulation mode, which basically means it'll be close to realistic driving than ever, which is concerning because of the driving mechanics, which I will get to in a bit. First aid kits, which normally heal about 90% of the entire health bar, now heals only a smaller portion instead, which isn't damning, but unless we get used to the shooting mechanism, this will be a problem. And most importantly, cops are more realistic, with things such as your speed limit and car accidents being tracked all the time. Even if you exceed your speed limit by a kilometer or two, you'll instantly get a wanted star. Resisting to yield will increase your wanted level, which will soon prompt the officers to use force to stop you no matter what. As much as people hate this mode for its difficulty, I actually enjoyed it because it adds a layer of realism to what actually was quite a realistic game. You can't even call this a GTA clone because its main aim wasn't to compete with GTA, but rather portray an alternate version of GTA where everything is quite realistic and set back in the 1900s. Now with that out of the way, let's begin the main storyline. You start with a really long cutscene showcasing Lost Haven, a city bustling with activity as people go about their day. Birds hawking, cars revving, steamboats and ferries of all sorts. Heck, this might be just one of the few games back in 2020 to have a world this active and open. And it's not just limited to this cutscene. Even once you're in the game, the life of the city still remains the same as how it was in the cutscene. Many video games tend to just hype the activity and details in cutscenes since it's pre-rendered video format, which isn't demanding on most, but once it's out of the cutscene, it's being back to being bland open world number 327 with nothing to stand out. And I'm happy to see that the step of this game is going in so far. I highly recommend you guys to not skip the cutscene just to be impressed at how the game is both visually and atmospherically. Once the cutscene comes towards a tram, you will notice that you're following someone, but he looks nothing like our protagonist himself. This is because the cutscene is set in 1938, a whole 8 years from when it all started, and the person we are following for a few seconds is a man named Detective Norman. Now there isn't really much known about this guy apart from the fact that he's a detective with really close ties with the good and non-corrupt cops, and since he has already handled a case related to what Tom is about to confess, it's more than enough to trust him with this information in return for his and his family's safety and protection. Which means that in this game, we'll be looking at what went wrong through Tom's perspective and how it all started and how it all came to an end. Now I would like to bring this to your notice that this review contains major spoilers for the game. So if you haven't played the game already, I suggest playing it first and then coming back to this review. Or if you just don't care and want to hear on my take about this, then feel free to, but otherwise, You have been warned.
The game starts off with you just getting ready for another usual night shift of a cab driver. Nothing out of the ordinary. But in another scene, you are witnessing a car chase between two gangs. And might I ask, why does 90% of the games that are released have Wilhelm scream in it? Like, there are so many other screams that you could use instead of Wilhelm scream. It's getting redundant by this point. But anyways, we're getting sidetracked now, so let's get back. After the first car chase we successfully evaded, they end up losing control and crashing into a wall, which was also pretty close to where Tom was. They soon got out and ordered Tom to drive anywhere, and this is where we get to experience the driving of Mafia. And I have a few things to say about this. The driving in this game is heavily inspired by the original Mafia game, mimicking the slow-paced cars and hard-to-maneuver type handling. In the old game, this was done to show how handling an old car felt over there, and it showcases that perfectly. You can compare this to GTA 4 but with more suspension physics and less grip on the road because of thin tires. But then that just adds another realism to driving an actual 1930s kind of vehicle. But however, it has a steep learning curve, as you will often find yourself either overspeeding into a turn or just causing a major health toll if you hit into a wall or a pole. Which is another thing of note is that these vehicles here are not as durable as you think. In normal video games, it'll take you a couple of hits, a couple of tumbles, a couple of falls to actually malfunction. These, on the other hand, actually stop malfunctions right after taking 3 to 4 major hits, making them unusable at all. And good luck trying to get them repaired because there are no repair shops available. So you'll have to take some time for you to get used to the driving mechanisms, but once you do, it'll be a cakewalk for the rest of the game, as long as you choose a good car. Now back to the main story plot. You then start driving around the city, going through under construction roads to shake off the mobs, and following the two gentlemen's directions, which according to the subtitles are Sam and Polly. I'll talk more about characters later on in the game. After shaking them off and going through a roadblock and shaking few more of them, you are then redirected to Salieri's bar, the place where the Salieri family reside, and once you drop them off, Polly asks you to wait for his compensation, which Sam brings to you later on, and along with that offers you a few words of advice.
One more thing. This matter stays between us. Anyone asks where you got that money, you won it at poker. The scratches on your car, you swerved to keep from hitting a little old lady. You got it?
Yeah, but what are you gonna say if they ask about the bullet holes?
You won't get to ask questions.
Okay, never mind. After that, Tom goes back home and starts counting the cash. To his surprise, it was more than enough to cover the damage cost. Heck, it can't even pay for a new cab, but he wasn't interested in joining the mob despite the pay, because of the risk it involves. And that concludes the first chapter of the game. This is just to introduce the driving mechanisms, the character whom you're going to be the protagonist, and the other two characters whom you will get close to.
After the whole night incident, you get back to your daily routine of doing taxi drives for people, and here it perfectly fits what Tom told about the difference between night and day shifts. In the morning, customers are either entitled to the point that they don't pay you in cash but rather give you advices instead, rude to a point where they want you to break the rules just to get to the place as soon as possible, or even being too drunk to give you a proper answer, and they don't pay you a lot because keep in mind, it's the Great Depression and their entitlement adds to it. The final guy you drop off refers you to a nearby coffee shop as a compensation for your drop off instead of giving you cash, which is fine, still better than nothing. Compared to this lady,
the only tip I'll give you is to stop smoking in your vehicle. I felt like I was sitting in an ashtray.
fucking Karen. Now when catching a break from all the work, you get ambushed and harassed by a man named Dino. Now, nothing is much known about him, but the only thing I can find about him was that he was in the car chase in the first mission that we had to shake off from. So he has somehow got to know that Tom was the one who helped in the getaway, So Dino and the other guy, I swear I really don't know what this guy's name is, start a chase sequence with you, and you get to navigate through the alleys and rooftops just to get rid of them. And despite having guns, they are terrible at aiming them. I'm talking Star Troopers level kind of aim. This is where we get to see how the parkour of the game works. I mean, it's pretty basic. You can climb obstacles, you can push people, I guess, and this isn't even meant to be a parkour game. I know this is kind of nitpicking for a game that's meant to be about Mafia and not parkour, but yeah, this is just a quick thing that I felt like talking about. Anyways, back to the topic now. You run back to Salieri's bar where coincidentally Sam and Polly are chilling outside. After the confrontation, which ends in your favor, Polly then decides that it's time to introduce you to the Don. And that's how chapter 2 ends. There's nothing really much to it. I mean, you could have combined chapter 3 and 2 to make it like its own chapter, but I guess that's just it to pad the runtime. So this chapter opens up with you being introduced to the Don himself. And now, since that every character that I want to introduce are in the round table of conference, I feel it's best to start introducing each one of them to you guys to get to know who each of them are. Let's start with the Don himself, Don Ennio Salieri. Originating from the same city as Tom, moved over to America for unknown reasons. He then later became a capo regime of Don Pepone, who at the time was the largest and most fearsome Don to exist, meaning that he was the Don's most trusted allies, along with another member whom I will introduce in some time. Soon after the news of an accident where Pepone had drowned, the two members decided to evenly split the city into their own territories, but however things didn't go as planned, as the two went on a cold war with each other by sabotaging their supplies and henchmen without directly killing each other. So over time, Salieri's main goal was to overtake the other person and become the biggest Don of this era, almost at the level of Pepone. Now he is someone who is calm, and when things go his way, he doesn't really take it so seriously. But as soon as things don't, he loses his mind and his trust on those who didn't make it go as planned. He often persists a friendly behavior, but like as if he was just a friend who wants to have fun. But there are times where he shows his true nature, which again I will get to in some time. Next in line is Frank Coletti, Salieri's first and longtime member of his own gang. He is the consigliere of Salieri, having him known all the important and crucial things about the gang while keeping tabs on the account. Any transactions to and from the account is kept on note by Frank and is later sent to the Don for further validation. If anything, he is the Don's right-hand person when it comes to making decisions and offering opinions, and the Don trusts him so much that almost all of the information that can lead to the downfall of the gang, should it ever fall into the wrong hands, has been entrusted into him. So you can tell that this guy is someone of very much importance. He also sometimes acts as an advisor to not just the Don but other gang members as well, often portrayed as an example of how a loyal member of the gang should be and how to stay away from trouble while at the same time having fun. After Frank comes the iconic duo, Sam Trampani and Polly Lombardo. Now I will start with Sam first because he has more importance to the plot compared to Polly. Sam is a more passive-aggressive person who always tries to reason with the opposition before using brute force. This is proven throughout the story where Sam would not act violently but verbally unless if he is forced to. He is also the one to get shot for the most part, so you and Polly end up being his set of crutches for about 30% of the game. He also has a kind side where if someone shows sympathy to him, he also returns the favor with no questions asked, which makes him more reliable for information compared to Polly. To the Don, he is a capo regime, one of the Don's most trusted allies because of his undying loyalty, but however he is directionless. He has no visions for himself apart from just making sure that the gang and business thrive no matter what, which makes him a great tool to the Don to rely on as nothing of his personal interest gets in the way, and if it's about making good changes to impress the Don himself. Polly, on the other hand, is a complete opposite of Sam. He resorts to aggression when things don't go his way and doesn't use much of his brain when it comes to anything. He is also sensitive to family, which is the term Salieri uses for his gang members, where if things don't go his way, instead of negotiating it, he goes through it in his own way, which will be proven sometime in the later part of the game. He is also someone who is closest to Tom next to Sam because Tom can relate to Polly more than him relating to Sam. They become the best of friends over time. There are other four members in the family who don't have much of screen time compared to these four, and they don't play much of an important role, so I'll just glance through them quite quickly. Vincento is our personal arms dealer who supplies us with different guns and ammunitions when we need for missions or just casual freedom. He has a soft side for Tom compared to other gang members, including the Don, so that's there. Rafi is our mechanic, who helps us with our car selection and has a troubled childhood with his father. He often has stuttering during his speech, which isn't specified what kind of reason why, but I would really like to know what it is in the comment section below. So if you do know it, please let me know. Because of this stuttering and sometimes childish-like behavior, this makes him the mockery amongst the other members. Not only Tom and Lucas are the ones who don't critique him for that. Lucas is another character I'll get into in some time. Ralphie becomes close to both Tom and Lucas because of said behavior, even considering Tom as a father figure to him because of the amount of respect and kindness he shows to him. He is by far my personal favorite character apart from the main character himself because of his personality. He isn't like other members who just tells you to do this or do that, but rather shares some of his past history, putting more character into someone who barely gets any screen time on the storyboard. I honestly wish this was the case with other characters, but in the game, having only 6 hours of storyline present, I can understand why this wasn't implemented in the first place. Next up we have Luigi, who's the bartender of the bar. Again, not much is known about him apart from Sam telling us that he used to be an unstoppable assassin and gunsman of the family before retiring to become a bartender. He is also the father of Sarah, who was with the family since a young age. She also becomes the love interest of Tom later on the story. There are some of the other members of the family that need noticing of, and apart from them, they're usually filler members who are just there. Anyways, they aren't important to keep note of, so let's move on. So this mission is where you get to meet the Don face to face. He agrees on giving you the money to fix a car, but you have other plans. You want to beat the living shit out of the ones who wrecked your cab. Salieri, being impressed by this, assigns Polly to accompany you to a nearby Morella gang hideout to do the same. Before that, you get a brief moment to explore the bar, but because you're still not a member of the gang, people there, especially this one, treats you like an outsider and make sure that you don't do any dumb stuff within the place. Nothing much can be done here apart from getting a few lines from Luigi and getting to read a newspaper and a letter, so there's not much to cover here. Once you're done, you are introduced to Vincento, who gives you a bat and cocktails. Cocktails? Are they cocktails? Oh, they're Molotovs. Okay, my bad. Molotovs to damage their vehicles, and Rafi is the one who offers you a car to drive. After reaching the place, you are introduced to the sneak mechanism. Nothing much to say here, it's your standard sneak, climb, and silent kill someone to prevent any unwanted attention. Pretty much like any other third-person world to ever exist. After that, you get to beat some cars, but because of the noise, you alert some of the gang members inside, and you get yourselves into a melee combat situation. There are two mechanics that play in this. One is the deflect, which is a quick time event where you have to hit a certain button before the prompt goes away. Doing so gives you a window to strike back, which is the second mechanism of the game. Now you can literally get away by just spamming strike over and over again and not worry about the guy deflecting back at you, no matter which difficulty you are playing on. The melee system can be abused as many times and as you want to without having to worry about taking any damage. After that, you get to throw some Molotovs onto the car, steal one of Morello's car and make a getaway from the mob and take the cops back to safety.
Well, what happened to the car I sent you out with?
Dumped it.
Well, why?
It was a boiler. This one's better.
A better car with a broken window?
Fresh air never killed nobody.
Sometimes this game just makes great jokes out of nowhere. Then Salieri, impressed by how you perform your work, now brings you into the family with Sam and Polly watching for bringing him in. And he did mention a few rules to abide here, which I'll mention it right now.
First, no cursing on the premises. There's a million words out there. And the man who needs to resort to fuck this and fuck that is just ignorant or lazy. Second, we don't deal in the hard stuff. I don't want any dope fiends in this neighborhood. We'll let Morella poison his own people if that's what he wants. Finally, stay out of trouble with the cops. We only have a few on the payroll, And if you cross the line, the rest will come after you. You understand?
Yes, Mr. Salieri.
Then I'm going to only ask you for one more thing, Tommy. I don't keep Paulie and Sam around just because they're strong. A lot of guys out there bigger and tougher than these two. And I don't keep Frank on Apero because he's smart. Though he is an artist with the numbers. All these guys in this room, they're here because they have the only thing that matters to me. The only thing that should matter to any of us. You know what that is, Tommy?
They're loyal.
That's right. Now you stay straight with me, you're gonna be living the high life, Tom. But you abuse my trust.
Don Salieri, you won't ever need to worry about me.
Okay then.
Now keep these few points in mind because they will be crucial information later on in the game. That brings to the end of chapter 3. This chapter, as the name suggests, is having you, Sam, and Paulie drive across the city to collect payments from those who haven't paid up yet. Now, the Salieri gang has offered protection to those who need it in exchange for cash. This involves keeping the goons and other gang members away from them and helping them use their business for the gang's personal gain. We don't really get to see much of this in action apart from Sam giving us a few lines on these, but it would have been a nice side mission where you get alerts during free roams to go protect a business which is being raided by goons. Take the game Control, for instance, where whenever you're exploring the FBC or doing a main mission, you would get a type of mission called Bureau Alerts where you'll have to clear the enemies known as Hiss within a given amount of time or the alert will fail. This concept would have played really well in this game, but one of the reasons is probably because it's a remake of the original Mafia game and they want to stick to the original as close as possible while at the same time implementing modern touches of graphics and realism here and there. But regardless of whatever reasoning it is, I just hope that the other two Mafia games, or at least the currently in development Mafia game, has this concept. Anyways, back to the topic now. We are now told to talk to Ralphie for a vehicle, but before that, Paulie tells us to talk to Vincenzo for reasons unknown. After going there, we are introduced to the basics of shooting mechanism with a starting pistol, a mini revolver, and now in terms of weapon variety, we don't get a lot in this game, which is expected because it takes place during the 1930s. We only have a handful of weapons, so I feel like it's the best time to go through all of them now. For melee weapons, we have the basics: a baseball bat, great for basic melee combat, a knife, really useful for instant kill and silent assassination, a pipe, and a wooden plank. Both act similar to a bat but has minor animation difference. Now even though there are 4 melee weapons, we can only get access to the bat and the knife from Vincenzo. The pipe and wooden plank are the only 2 melee weapons where you can access during certain missions. And once those missions are done, we don't get to keep them anymore. Which kinda sucks because it just keeps the melee option less viable to use when most of the fun in any game comes from using melee and trying to melee people because the animations between these two are similar to the baseball bat, and apart from using it as a meme, there's no other reasons why the devs thought of keeping it further, so it was limited to specific events only. For one-handed weapon, we get the pocket revolver, which is the first one-handed weapon we get to use in-game. It's based on the real-life gun Smith & Wesson Model 10. This is a replacement of the Code Detective special gun that we get to use in the original Mafia game. Now this weapon is pretty much a decent type. It doesn't have a great hit power and the accuracy can sometimes be a bit off and the reload time is really bad on this. But it serves as a good starter weapon and we will be getting better ones in the future. Semi-auto pistol based on the M1911 is one of the most used weapon in the game by your allies. It's a fairly reliable gun with decent accuracy and a good firing rate, so it also has a decent ammo capacity. If you ask me, this weapon would have been a better starter pistol, but I'm sure there's some lore as to why that gun is the starter one and not this one. Magnum pistol, inspired by Smith & Wesson Model 19, is similar to the pocket revolver but with a much better accuracy and firepower at the cost of range and rate of fire. It's a fair trade and often recommended to be used in tight spaces. Now, according to the Mafia Wiki page, it says that the gun wasn't even supposed to exist in the model because it only started production in 1957, as opposed to the game which takes place during the 1930s. I'm sure no one really cares about this. Why would you in the first place when I'm just trying to add the runtime of this review? So bear with me here. Lupara, which is the only single-handed shotgun we get to use, is based off a sort of double-barrel shotgun. Now, like any other shotgun to exist in any game, it's best for close range and doesn't really have good ammo capacity, but you can deal damage to multiple enemies even if you find them stacked together. And service revolvers, which is a buffed version of the pocket revolver based on the Colt Python, which again shouldn't have existed in this era, but I'm pretty sure no one really cares at this point. This weapon is used mainly by the cops and sometimes by both the Dons in certain cutscenes. Now there are no major difference between both the revolvers apart from how they look, so you're fine pretty much using either of them. For the two-handed weapon, we get the bolt action rifle based on the Springfield M1903A1. Which has a really good accuracy but a terrible firing rate. This is as close as you can get to an actual sniper rifle but without a scope, and you only found its use in certain chapters, but apart from that it isn't an ideal weapon of choice in general combat. Shotgun, based off the Winchester model 1912, a self-explanatory weapon which is good for dealing damage amongst a group of people but not in range and accuracy. Pretty much like any other shotgun in existence. An actual sniper rifle, same as the bolt action rifle, but the difference is you get its scope, and you can only get access to this in certain chapters, and it will be removed from your personal inventory once you complete those chapters, and you'll never be able to get it back. Now since we only get to use it so much, I'm pretty much sure everyone knows how it handles. It's the exact same as the bolt action rifle, but it just has an extra scope. And lastly, everyone's personal favorite, the Tommy gun, based on the Thompson M1928. Now this gun has a really good firing rate, probably the highest in this entire game, but however it has a mid accuracy. So sometimes you can one-tap someone continents away, or sometimes you won't even land at a single shot at someone who's just at a distance of your next door neighbor. Or you can be an absolute greaser and just recoil control your way to get those shots. But regardless, it's still one of the best go-to weapon when you're really confused with which weapon you want to choose. Now both the Tommy gun and the shotgun have their own gold version, which does nothing to improve the stats apart from just showing up in gold color and have a bigger mag size than its counterpart. You can only access them during the free roam after completing certain side missions. Yes, there are side missions in this game, if you didn't know, which I'll be talking about more later on in the chapter. And finally, the throwables, which are the Molotovs, grenades. Molotovs are pretty much the main throwables we get to use and does decent damage with great opening timing for us to get that sweet headshot. But the grenades are only chapter specific. You cannot buy them or find them in free roam, as they deal a great amount of damage and can sometimes instantly kill a group of people if placed correctly. And I don't think I need to tell you what the real life counterparts are, because it's just pretty much one-to-one replicas. But for those who don't know, here's a reference on the screen for this. So these are the weapons you can get to access within the first Mafia universe, and I'm sure I'm way off of my actual explanation, to which I'm sorry for, so let's get back on track. After the brief exchange with Vincenzo, he gives us a gun and then we meet Ralphie, who teaches you how to pick a lock on a car. Super useful if you guys want to avoid drawing attention from the cops and if you don't want to drive with a broken window. So for this chapter, we get 3 stops to visit for collection. The first one being a bakery shop run by a guy named Al, and Sam handles it verbally, allowing us to go into the back room and collect it, while the Garama talks smack about you in some foreign language. The next is at a China store from a guy named Eugene, who doesn't have a good history with Polly, and probably with paying his debts as well. Once we reach there, Polly decides to handle the situation on his own, and comes back not with the payment, but rather with a deadline on when the payment is expected to arrive. The third place is the farthest, and it is the Bill's Motel at the countryside. This is also the main hub for goods of both Morello and Salieri gang imports, hence why it's quite safeguarded by Salieri himself. It's also a better deal for anyone to accept the protection this far, as they have the excuse to charge more than usual because of the distance. Once we reach there, Sam and Polly walk in while Tom decides to smoke near a gas pump. Like, I get it that you want to show that you don't care, but it's right next to a gas pump, my guy. You're gonna kill yourself by doing that. Anyways, later on you find out that Morello's gang had already taken over the place and have injured Polly and taken Sam as an hostage. Now you, being the only one remaining in a healthy condition, have the option to either sneak your way through to get Sam or barge your way in. However, regardless of whichever option you choose, you'll end up being caught and you'll have to go on a full firing motion. Now the gun mechanics are questionable at best. Not saying that you have to shoot the gun a particular way or the default layout for shooting is weird, but rather that sometimes you may point exactly at one's head but it completely phases through him, or sometimes you might target their body but the game registers it as a headshot. All I'm saying is that it's a bit inconsistent and can sometimes be a pain if you're playing this on classic difficulty, but it isn't as game breaking as it looks, as it only happens with every 7 to 10 enemies that you encounter. After killing everyone, you rescue Sam, only to be body slammed by another person whom you have to get into a car chase sequence. Now remember when I told you about how it takes a bit of skill to drive any car in Mafia because of how slow it is? Now combine that with shooting mechanism and you'll have a hard time completing any mission with it. And God forbid when one of the henchmen's vehicles starts cock blocking you when you take his vehicle out, because then you'll have to restart the entire chase all over again, as catching up with thieves takes longer than usual and it's not worth doing that. But once you take the person out, you search for the vehicle and you take the case, and you get a brief moment of Tom rethinking what he should have done there. Instead of taking the case and going back, he should have just fled the scene, but he didn't want to go back to the old life, struggling to make his daily wage, which from this point on became the start of his life as a henchman for the Mafia organization.
Before heading to Chapter 5, you're met with an intermission, back to the current time where Detective Norman feels suspicious on how fast Tom's career changed overnight, but that even Tom couldn't explain, and for him, it felt like it was someone's work to get to him and to the gang. Once that's done, you get to the cutscene with somebody named Joy Cracker getting into an accident with another wealthy person. Joy Cracker is a renowned boxer in the Mafia universe and represents the Morello gang, and it's not that important to know who he is, but it is crucial since he is a part of an income generated by Morello's gang, and the wealthy person whom he goes yelling to because of this accident is none other than our main enemy for the game, Don Morello. As explained by Tom, Morello gang is way more established than Salieri's, and has all the powerhouses in his pocket, best summarized by the sentence over here.
Back then, Salieri didn't have the run of the city. For every buck Salieri made, Don Morello would turn 10. He paid off cops, politicians, judges, and anyone he couldn't buy, he scared into looking the other way.
Making him almost unstoppable. We also get to see how short-tempered he is, often dealing with actions than thoughts. A complete opposite behavior compared to Salieri, who is calm and composed, thinks before he acts. Norman doesn't buy this reason on why for a trivial accident does Morello need to act like this, but again, this could not be explained by Tom, and we can check this as a typical evil guy doing evil things to show that he is the bad person and we need to stop him no matter what. Cut to 1935, where there is a big race that's going to happen. Normally, it's the Salieri's gang's driver that wins the race every time, and because of that, the whole of Salieri's territory place bets on him winning, some placing their whole life savings just to get out of debt and live a normal life. That racer name is Mikey Dunn, a minor character who we never really get to see, but from what Salieri informs us is that he is a talented racer who has never lost a single race in his career. But however, things might be at risk, as Morello now hired a new European driver who's the best in his class, and he owns a really fast car, to a point where it's too much of a risk to put our driver against theirs. Now it wouldn't be a problem if Salieri's driver lost just one race, but as stated before, almost the whole of Salieri's territory placed a bet on him winning, and taking the driver out is not part of the task because no one is able to locate where he is at the moment. So the next option is to alter his car's performance. Our favorite mechanic Ralphie knows the security guard who can get us in, and with that, we are off. Before that, Ralph introduces us to a garage where you can collect vehicles and use them whenever you need to. Now to store a vehicle into the garage, you just have to get into a vehicle, drive it for a few seconds, and it'll be added to the garage. Now the car selection is meh at best. Some of them are really great, whereas some of them are terrible. I'm sure someone out there would have made a tier list on which vehicles are the best and which is the worst, so if I find them, I'll flash them on the screen for a few minutes, and hopefully this should compensate for this unnecessarily wrong review on this game. Once you get access to the car, comes the real hard part. Remember when I told you that to drive a car in Mafia you need to get used to it and have some form of skills in driving because of how realistic it is? I know it's the third time I'm doing this, but
Do you really even care at this point? Now combine that with a car that can go out of control at any turn if you go really fast, and pair that up with a timer. You'll either ace this section in one shot or just take 30 minutes to complete in this section. God forbid if you're playing this on classic difficulty, cause then you'll be like me where you fail constantly or just survive with only a second or two to spare. That's why not just myself but the game itself recommends you to play classic difficulty only if you know what you're doing and have played this game before in any other difficulty. Anyways, after all that shortcoming, we are then introduced to Lucas Bertone, another friend of Ralph who can help you alter the call's performance. Now this guy just appears once throughout the entire game story, but he is important for a certain side mission that he provides during free roam, which I will cover near the end of the video. After that, you are tasked to bring the vehicle back to the racetracks, of course with that annoying timer, but now the car is easily handleable. Only downside is you can't accelerate continuously because the engine heats up and can blow if it reaches the maximum temperature. There is also a neat detail in this world that I'd like to add here. If you go into this bridge, you will see a man trying to commit suicide. He will be surrounded by ambulances and a few bystanders who advise him not to do so, so going close to him or honking your car will result in him jumping off and you'll get an instant 2-star wanted level. And sadly, you can't really do much in terms of helping him avoid it as you have a timer to beat, and even if you try to, you won't be able to do much. He just stands there. It's not like something you'll be noticing as your eyes will be on the timer and on the road for the most part, but it's small things like this that shows just how realistic the game is, and you're just another person doing something that you think will help you in the long run. Many games make you think that the world revolves around you and you're not being part of the world, but this is one thing that sets Mafia from the rest. Clear realism, and although it's a sad thing to witness the game, this happens a lot in real life as well. After delivering the vehicle, the time skips to daylight where you, Sam and Polly are ready to watch the match and to see your drivers win. Only there's one problem. Our driver has been found and beaten up by the Morello gang, making him unable to race for this event, which leaves you the only one who can secure the win for Salieri's territory. With no other option, you hop on the driver's seat and you set your way to win the match. Now this race depends on how well you learn the driving mechanisms of the game. If you've gotten used to it and if the AI is dumb enough, you can then complete this race in one take. But if the AI is ruthless, you'll still need time to get used to the mechanism, then you might be in here forever. For me, it was the latter, with the added classic difficulty making it a pain in the ass. Trust me, I thought I was about to lose this race, but thankfully the guy in front got too greedy and not only spun himself out, but took the guy in second place out as well, making me finish the race in first place. I'm not too sure if this is scripted or just a random occurrence in my previous playthrough, as in my previous playthroughs I wasn't able to replicate the scenario. But regardless, I was able to finish the race, and I can see why many would consider this mission the hardest. After completing that one hellhound of a race, you then get to explore the racetrack a bit more. Your main objective now is to find Polly, as many claim that he has gotten too drunk and can't stand on his own. But you can talk to all the other gang members to have them congratulate you on winning and helping you find Polly. Or at least try to, because some of them don't even let you know where he is, apart from telling the obvious that he is drunk. After finding him, you can take him back home, but however on his way back he asks you to drop him to a whorehouse for obvious reasons. Now it's up to you. This doesn't change the objective of the main game though, as it still tells you to take him home, but if you ignore the game's instruction and instead take Polly to the whorehouse, you basically earn nothing. Apart from such event, that is. It doesn't really add much to the story. Like, it doesn't even give any insights to the character more, or doesn't even give you an alternate cutscene of the same. It's just via extra dialogues, and once he goes into the bar, it goes dark and that's it. This is probably done just to see if you'd rather listen to the game's objective or one of the character's objective. Would I recommend people do this? Well, unless if you're trying to achieve the sweet 100% achievement, I wouldn't really recommend doing so, because you'll have to manually track the bar yourself, without the game marking it for you. With that, one of Mafia's hardest mission is done for. After the race, you're now resting in the bar, just getting ready to go back home when Luigi asks you a favor, to drop his daughter, Sarah, back at her place. Although it's a simple task, and given that after the race, Tom did have an affection for Sarah, on the way you let Sarah drop off some leftover food to someone she knows of and continues on the journey. You have small talks on how protective her father is, how the goons near her house don't let her go without pissing her off. Nothing too low intense to go through, so we can skip that. Once we're at a place, we are then met with the goons both Luigi and Sarah were talking of. Apparently, they knew who Tom was and proceeds to gang up on both of them. This is the only mission where you can get to use the two melee weapons I have mentioned earlier, the pipe and the plank, similar to baseball bat in terms of damage and range, but with some new animations. That's it. After beating them up and thrown into a fence and beating up the big guy who threw you, Sarah finds out that you're injured and takes you to her apartment. Now from here there's a great difference between how the scene plays in the definitive edition and the original one. In the definitive edition, she makes you sit on the couch and gives you backstory on how abusive her mother was to both her and her father. Kind of the opposite of what you would hear in today's generation, but this is still a thing. After patching you up, she makes you stay just to keep you safe till you recover, and the scene ends with both of them cuddling on the couch. Sounds very decent, but compared to the original version, it's completely different. She patches you up and then goes on to have a hot, steaming session. No boy! And I'm not gonna play the whole clip because I don't want this video to get age restricted, but a quick YouTube search can help you find out what that video is in no time. It's just unclear why the change was done, probably to paint Sarah as a girl with standards and not some kind of whore, and to give more character to her past life, which I can assume after comparing both the scenes. But other than that, I don't see any other reason why it needs to have a complete change. You can argue by saying that they did it to ensure that it fits today's generations, but there are games like Witcher 3, Baldur's Gate 3, and Cyberpunk to name a few where there are whole uncensored scenes, and it never got any major backlashes from the public, so whichever it may be, we still have a good ending to what is relatively one of the smallest missions in the game. It's mainly done to introduce how Sarah and Tom got close to each other since. Back at Salieri's bar, the whole gang gets to know about the previous incident and fumed at how they would treat Sarah. You, Sam and Polly set out to permanently defeat them once and for all by taking out a few of their members. Sam splits with you and Polly to check on the neighborhood to see if he can find any lead, while Polly instructs you to get some weapons from Vinny before meeting him at Chinatown. After getting the weapons and going to Chinatown, you are then introduced to a man named Big Biff, a local vendor who knows a little too much about the whole city. It's unclear on how he does get to know about this, as is never mentioned or hinted, but sometimes questions are better to remain unanswered, as we get what we need in the end, even if it does cost us some cash. I mean, he didn't take cash from Polly, but later on in the game he does take some cash from us. After a brief exchange of information, you get to know that Polly is doing some side businesses with Biff in suit imports from a Mexican guy. While not much is known about it with any other gang members, Salieri doesn't seem too bothered about it as long as he gets a cut from Polly. Polly also mentions not to inform anyone about this, as it's a little secret. Once you find the goons, you start beating them up. Two of them make a getaway, and for what was supposed to be just a way to teach them a lesson, now turns into a full-fledged gunfight. This is the only level where the level of destruction is at its peak, with electricity poles falling down, signboards crumbling, and the entire warehouse even exploding at one point. It's very clear that this was intended only for the mission, as you can't replicate it anywhere else apart from here. Now, depending on what difficulty you're playing, this section alone can take 5 minutes or 50. Since this was my second playthrough and on classic difficulty, it was the latter. Even with all the explosion, these guys will just get back up like nothing has ever happened and proceed to one-tap you to death, which can get annoying after some time, but once you get the hang of it, it won't be a problem to deal with. Once you take out all the members, it's only 2 that are left, the same ones who led the assault of you and Sarah, Billy and Johnny, which then pushes you into a car chase. Now this is the only car chase that I found my playthrough where you don't even need to shoot at them. Just follow them and your story will progress. I know based on the previous missions you were taught to take them out while driving, but whether you do that or not in this mission doesn't change the outcome, as in the finale of the mission, both of them end up crashing at a railway. You then get a chance to kill both of them, but for some reason Tom shot's showing sympathy for them. This is because it's the first time he had to execute someone by looking at them in the eye, as compared to previous encounters where you just kill them. Even though they did something wrong, they're humans in the end. That they deserve a second chance is what Polly would think. But Polly snaps you out by killing both of them and teaches you that sometimes overcoming your emotions and letting your hands do the talk instead is the best thing to do. This is where you get to see one of Tom's downside as a mafia person, showing sympathy to the enemy regardless of what they did, and this becomes slightly common the more you progress down the line. After killing both of them, we are then back at the office. It's not officially the office, but I'd like to call that now since we've always had the meeting here, where we are met with a new set of jobs and some complications. Remember those two guys, Johnny and Billy, whom we just killed? Well, turns out little Johnny has been constructing his house with galvanized square steel. Johnny was the son of the current mayor, Gilotti, and thus has caused him to side with Morello, giving him more power in his pocket. And Billy, well, he survived the gunshot with a broken arm, and this now is trouble, as if he's going to recognize either Polly or Tom, then it's game over for Salieri's gang. Hence, Sam has to come and take Billy out, while Tom has another job to do that takes place in the same area, a luxury gentleman's club where Salieri has invested a lot of money and offered protection towards them, has suddenly decided to part ways with us and deal business with Morella instead. You in return have to teach the manager not to do something like that and blow the place up, or at least a part of it. The main reason is to serve as a distraction for everyone at the church while Sam gets a clear shot at Billy before making a getaway. It is also discovered that one of the girls at the club happens to be snitching to the Morella gang about sensitive information based on Salieri's gangs, so you'll have to take her out to prevent further information going into the wrong hands. You then make your way to Vinny, who gives you an explosive device to rig the manager's room. This is the only time we get to use and see an explosive, and no matter in which free roam mission or other missions that you get to do, you won't be able to see it. Once you get into the car with Sam, he tells you not to go anywhere just yet as he has a request. Not to take out Michelle, as he seems to have an affection for her, being with her a few times whenever he made his way there. He gives you a couple $100 to help her with the getaway and never return back again. After which, Sam doesn't want to talk about Michelle, because even though he wants her alive and well, he won't be able to see her again, and being reminded of her will only make him less focused on what matters him most, being a loyal gang member. And he also makes a good point on why he wasn't attending any funerals as opposed to weddings.
Last time I went it was. Same songs I always heard as a kid. It's the funerals, Tom. That's all it ever is. All that anyone ever wants to do is point guns at the family and shoot. Getting point there were so many funerals, I just stopped going to most of them. They're all boring as hell.
He also complains about how much of a bad job Tom and Polly did to a point that he has to clean up for a mess, but we don't care at this point anyways. Once you drop him at the church, you make your way to the club to accomplish two tasks. Take out the manager and Michelle and rig the place. Now eventually what I found during my playthrough is that you cannot kill Michelle at all. You can however have the option to meet her if you want to, just to help her make the getaway, but even this is optional as eventually you will let her go with or without your aid, and it doesn't affect the story anyway, it just progresses as usual. Now I was expecting something different to play, but then again this is a remake of a very old game, and I can understand why they want to stick so badly to the original story with barely any changes made to it. To save some time, this is where we can meet the manager, and once you meet him, you get a quick animation of you taking him out, and thus ensues a gunfight. This is one of the more tougher gunfights in the game, as there will be multiple people shooting at you at the same time, which makes it hard to prioritize on whom to take out first, but here's my 2 cents of info. Take out the ones who have more powerful weapons than the rest of the shooters first, as they often deal more damage, and the rest can sometimes be one-tap you before you get the chance to even know where they are shooting from. Once you take them all out, near the office is where the hardest part of the mission is. This guy here who's hiding behind the plant with a Tommy gun. What's worse is that you can't get to him or see him to get a clear shot of him, but he can see you and can gun you down unless you take cover first. Once you're able to take him out, head over to the office where you can read the letters.
Dear Mr. Coletti, I must apologize for missing our regular appointment last week. I had urgent family matters to attend at short notice. It is with some regret that I write to confirm the termination of our agreement. Mr. Salieri has been a wonderful business partner over the years. I am most grateful for his support and your wise counsel. Please find with this missive a return of Salieri's investment, along with $100 as a gesture of goodwill. Our doors are always open. We remember our friends here at the Corleone. Yours cordially, Howard Davis, Manager, Corleone Hotel.
In other words, he means no bad blood between them, but you can tell that he was only doing this to make it look like he has other ventures to take part in. In another letter,
Dear Mr. Morello, the following patrons may be of interest. I have their details should you need them. Several city councilors and one congressman, senior officials in the Federal Tax Office, Deputy Director of the Prison Service as Board of Appeals Prohibition Bureau Chief at the LHPD. In addition, a number of Salieri associates are sweet on our girls and fond of pillow talk. We will keep an ear out for your interests. Yours cordially, Howard Davis, Manager, Corleone Hotel.
and on the table are some cash that you're meant to take. He's not sure for what, but who doesn't like free cash now? After setting up the bomb, you realize that the cops have been called. Tom is surprised, but why should he? I mean, wasn't that expected with all the gunfiring you guys have been doing? You then have to jump over neighboring rooftops, which then goes into a long gunfight between you and the cops. Now this section is vast in space and less in enemy count, so if you memorize the areas where there are less cops than the rest, you can just run past this place and still make it through the checkpoint. I found this during my second playthrough, and as you progress through the story, I will let you know where you can skip gunfights just by running past these people. You can do this even for the hotel shootout, but because of less space and some of them having way powerful weapons like the shotgun, you sprinting can end up being one-tapped by them. So like I said, I will let you know on which sections can be skipped through and which can't be skipped. Now back to the rooftop scene, where unfortunately you have to make it back to the church, the same where Sam is supposed to take out Billy before he starts identifying people. And these guys are hardly unaffected, considering that an explosion just happened not too far. I guess they're Mafia members and they're used to explosion happening, but there should be some form of discomfort in that rather than just being stone cold in there. You then realize that Sam isn't in the venue and Billy isn't killed yet, and the priest just happened to spot you and Billy instantly recognizing you, creating another shootout within the church. As you go around chasing Billy and killing anyone who gets in your way, the priest screams in the background not to continue the killing in the house of God. After finally cornering Billy and killing him, the priest then yells at Tom for killing people in the house of God. Despite Tom giving reasons on why he had to, the priest is more concerned that if at least one of them would have turned from his ways towards God, it would have been all worth it, which does reflect Tom's personality, where giving people second chance was his thing. Unless if people misuse the second chance, and oh my god, that guy is still alive. This guy, mind you, has the thickest plot armor I've ever seen in the entirety of this game. This is the second time we have shot him dead and he is still alive. After telling the priest that no matter how hard he tries, none of them will go back to the old ways, which then puts you in a bad spot as he prepares his gun towards you. Just as the yacht you were gun for, Sam comes in and kills Billy, putting one more in the head just to make sure he is actually dead for good. Tom then gives some cash for the damages, but the priest declines it as blood money, despite him taking it from other members as hinted by Tom, but however he did agree not to speak of this incident to the cops, so that makes it even. After that, you and Sam make a getaway in a hearse from the cops back to Salieri's bar, and Sam gives you a word of advice that comes into play later on during the story.
Thanks again, Sam.
It's not anything you wouldn't do for me.
I know, but when you come that close to biting it, Christ, it's something.
Don't need to tell me about that. Just don't think about it. Best lesson I could ever teach you. Don't think about anything.
And that ends the mission. This will mostly be how most of the missions will play. You do something good, you shoot a bunch of guys, and then an epic cutscene plays, and then it wraps up to the next mission. Since this game is more old school, then it's the main reason why there are disconnects between each mission and why the free roam is separated from the story mode, but it would have been nice if this was implemented in modern day story progression method into the remake, but again, it's nothing that can affect the gameplay much other than a few people who cry about it like it's changed the way of gaming. You then get another intermission break from all the hoopla that's been going on, back to the current times where Norman finds it hard to believe that all this has happened and is ready to take you in. One problem though, he may have all the story of Tom and his involvement in Salieri's gang, but none about Morella's gang, which is pivotal to bring the case to an end. So interested but dismayed, he prepares himself to listen to the rest of the confession. It comes to the suspicion back then itself that Salieri might be paying off someone to void the case, as in every present in the record itself. And Frank, whom it's been a while since I mentioned him, have found that Morella is helping Gilardi, who was a former president, to now get re-elected so they can then pin down Salieri's gang for the murder of his son Johnny. Now, not only that, but Morello also knew that we were keeping low, so he decided to sabotage the businesses. Firstly, slowly with trucks missing to whole shipments not arriving at all. But despite all that happening, business was going as usual as if nothing bad has ever happened. But however, something bad is definitely about to happen right next. Something involving Frank as a main person. Cut back to past times where Frank started giving us tips on how to use the money gained through illegal activities. That doesn't bring a lot of attention around them. And while we are at it, Frank starts opening about the old times when it was just him and Don. He used to have a dog when he was a young boy, something of a greyhound type, and according to him was the fastest that anyone has ever seen. This is how Salieri was introduced to Frank, by betting on his dog to win all the dog races, till it all went south in one of the races where the dog lost. Even though it was only a pocket knife that the Don has lost, he was angered and disheartened by this. And this is where you get to hear the other side of Salieri through Frank, where instead of giving the dog another chance like you're used to seeing him do, he tries to drown the dog, which resulted in Frank giving Salieri a broken nose to prevent him from killing the dog. This is the first and last time you get to see Frank open up about his history with the Don, and not everything is filled with sunshine and rainbows. The reason why the dog failed in the race is because it was pregnant. During the heat, it decided to wander across the town and every dog had the turn on it. And Frank also draws a nice correlation between that and Tom's situation, where if he flashes around with his money to many people, they will then use him to start doing bad things with that. Once he is in a fucked up position, the gang can't do much to help him but abandon him. He also states the downsides of both Polly and Sam, which I mentioned earlier, but Frank puts it in a much better way than I do.
Good. Because you need to think about your career here. Look, Paulie's hit his ceiling. He's the guy we want in a tussle, but he's not smart enough to run anything. Sam is loyal, but he has no vision. But you, Tommy, you could run this town someday.
Well, I appreciate that, Frank.
You then drop Frank at some place and that's where the cutscene ends. This is very pivotal as this is where things start to go downhill for both Salieri and gang members. It's like when Frank starts saying all this, he's preparing us for things to come, almost like he knows what is going to come and when it will come and why as well. Once done at the cutscene, you make your way back to Salieri's bar where Luigi tells you that you're needed at the garage for some work. Once you make your way there, Frank meets up with you to inform about Sam and Polly collecting a shipment of Canadian stuffs, that is, alcohol. Although both Sam and Polly have done this a couple of times in the past and they are used to it, Frank wants you to go with them as an extra pair of eyes and hands if things ever go south, which is very suspicious to me because all this time the trade has been going smoothly and suddenly Frank has a feeling that another person needs to be with them just in case, which foreshadows on what's to come after this. Once you make your way to the warehouse, you and Polly then set off to a nearby farm where the deal is supposed to happen. On the way, Polly lets you in on more information about Sarah, Tom's lover, and how she probably knows more about the gang and the business than they do, to a point that she doesn't ask a lot of questions regarding them. Polly recommends Tom to marry her and Tom takes her into consideration. Once you reach the entrance of the farm, you realize that Sam is in there waiting for us with the stuffs. Polly, assuming that Sam just dozed off, honks aloud but gets no response, which prompts Tom to go investigate. On the way, you encounter random artifacts and collectibles, which I'll get to in a bit, and a newspaper showing how farm closures are at an all-time high because of higher rates and lower income. This to remind you that this takes place during the Great Depression,
which still persists during that time as well. A nice touch of detail there. And in another shred, you find a dead dog along with a newspaper cutting that reads about a farmer who was found hanging dead by the neck by local children. Apparently, he was missing since 2 months and police had no hopes in finding him as hinted by the word fruitless. Police suspects that this isn't suicide as the location where it was found doesn't look like to be the place of one but rather a murder place. After a bit more searching, you find the truck that's supposed to have the goods ready to be shipped, but the driver is dead and all the goods are unloaded and scattered all over. This leads to an ambush and the guy confronting you about it, but you don't buy it, which results into another gunfight. After a given time to explore the area before progressing, and as you do so, you realize that all this seems to be a setup, with a literal ambush plan on one of the shed's counter and a telegram showing that Uncle is happy for the gifts to be on its way. Also, nice way of plugging your company's name over there. It's unclear that what the gift is. You might say it's because of the deal that they've initiated, but this is usual business. Nothing you knew of it, so it can't be because of that. But it can be something else. Probably of this ambush that they have been planning, but why would they decide to ambush someone that they've been dealing with for quite a long time? Almost any answer I think of always runs into a dead end, so if you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. After inspecting the body, Polly and the others come to your aid and start analyzing who those guys were, only to discover that they are undercover cops. Most likely under the check of Morello, hence why they didn't bother to identify themselves before confronting Tom about it. Then you start looking for Sam only to discover a heap of bodies in one of the sheds, all from the Canadian group, but luckily no sign of Sam over there. After running into some more goons and a poorly attempted ambush, we then get to see Sam being cornered by the cops. This time they are wearing uniform unlike the previous one who weren't. Now this mission can be tedious mainly because of the Molotov, cause this thing acts like a homing missile. Once it's in the air, it then proceeds to knock you off no matter where you moved over to, even if going as far as to changing the trajectory mid-air just to hit you. And I've had this happen a couple of times and it's kind of annoying at best, and they can decimate your health in seconds if you aren't careful with it. Once you kill all of them, go to Sam and you'll find him in a bad shape. Polly then goes to get the truck while you take care of Sam to make sure that he stays alive, but as expected, Morello's gang shows up and you have to ward them off. This section can be easy if you perfectly time your Molotov at the entrance to kill them all before they can even get the chance to shoot at you, but you might want to be careful at this window because a guy here with a Tommy gun will mow you to death if you aren't careful. Once you take them out, you'll aid Sam only to realize that the feds are now onto you. This is more like a second wave. You start by shooting the cars and killing a few of them while using the same strategy. You then take out all the cops that enter the building. Some will try to come up towards you, but they can easily be taken care of just by point blank killing them. Once Polly makes it to your location, you take Sam and make a getaway. But here you are chased by the cops. You use a Tommy gun with unlimited ammo to take them out, and must I say, please prioritize your truck's health at this section, cause the next one will be really hard unless if your truck doesn't have more than 80% of its health. You will be cooked there. A pro tip is to aim only at the drivers, as once you kill them, the car will be immobilized and won't pursue you further. For the bike, it's straightforward. Just kill the guy who's riding it and it should be fine. This goes on for some time. Polly will knock off a biker on his ride at the cost of nearly falling off. This makes your truck at a standstill, forcing you to kill all those who try to take you out just before another police vehicle pushes you off a cliff, freeing you from the trap that you've gotten into. After that, you're introduced to a new enemy, a police in an armored tank truck. Now this thing is beastly in terms of damage, and you can see why I told you guys to prioritize your truck's health at the first section, because this thing can take your truck out before you can even think of firing a shot at it. This is the most broken vehicle in the game because of how much damage it can give and can sometimes instantly fail the mission if you aren't careful about it. I was stuck on this section for a good 50 minutes before I got lucky enough that the aim assist they used started shooting elsewhere instead of the truck, which gave me a good chance to shoot at it, and for this one you'll have to take it down progressively, starting with the turret, with your only window of shooting is when it's reloading. You can risk it by shooting when it's also shooting, but if you're on lower difficulty, this will work, but not on the higher ones, as your chance of getting killed gets instantly higher by doing so. After taking out the turrets, you then have to deal with the people inside the truck shooting you. Now this is pretty much simple compared to all the other compared to the turrets, because you just have to knock out the windows, causing complete darkness, and they can't shoot you in return. But however, as you're about to finally take them out, your gun runs out of ammo. So luckily, Sam saved up some Molotovs to which he gives to you. You throw a few, which causes the truck to lose balance, and it would go off a cliff, which brings the end to this cutscene. After that, Sam takes you to a nearby doctor that he knows personally, and you and Polly take Sam inside. Polly suggests you to take the truck back to the warehouse as the doctor shouldn't feel pressured under two people watching him do the surgery. Tom agrees and takes the truck back to the warehouse, and once dropping it there, takes his car back over to Sarah's place. Sarah notices the blood on your jacket, and knowing that you're in deep distress of what just happened, she then confronts you, and may I present to you the world's shortest proposal ever.
Marry me.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. Like, there's not even like an elaborate sentence, it's just two sentences, and that's what makes it pretty contradictory compared to what we get in today's generation. But yeah, that's there. And that brings us to the end of this mission. This is by far the most action-packed one, and yet, trust me, I've never seen a mission more action-packed in this game than this one yet. But this is going to set up on how the downfall of whole Salieri's gang is about to take place. Now, there is no cutscene on where you get to see Tom and Sarah getting married, but at this point we can just assume that they're already married because the mission isn't all about it. It's about Salieri being distressed as he calls on to Tom to inform him about something, that there is an imposter among us. Salieri suspects that it's Frank who's the imposter because the accounts books on which he keeps every single transaction to and from the gang is now missing, and despite trying to contact Frank and his family members, none of them were answering and none of them were at their homes. Tom, however, doesn't believe this and thinks that this seems to be a whole misunderstanding, but Salieri differs otherwise. And he brings up the dog incident, which according to Frank and what you heard from him, is that the dog survived after being drowned by the said Don. But however, you realize from the Don that the dog has been killed soon after. Realize that now there's no other option but to actually get the logbook from Frank and do what needs to be done. You head your way to Winnie, who gives you a Lupara, which is a one-handed shotgun I discussed earlier. Now, this was a very popular old weapon back during the day, and showing this to Frank signifies the message saying that this is what you get if you betray the family by taking care of it the old way. Tom, hesitant but knows that this is the only option that the gang will accept, takes a look around and takes the getaway car and goes straight to Biff's place, whom after you bribe him for a few bucks, gives you a little information on how Little Tony knows something about what's going on. After going to a small bar where Little Tony is located, you then realize that the feds are now involved, and Frank apparently has been snitching to the feds and Morella's gang about the whole operation within our gang. So your next option is to go to Frank's home to see what he's up to. And when you make it there, you realize that Frank is being driven by someone under heavy personnel, almost like he's being escorted to somewhere else. You follow him for quite some time, and this is the most realistic follow mission because no matter how close you get to that person, except too close, you realize that the suspicion meter doesn't go up, unlike other games where even if you're a bit too close, the suspicion meter starts racking up almost like they have a third eye behind them. I really like this mission because of how realistic it is, and at the same time I wish it could have been done better, like for instance the suspicion meter going all the way up as soon as you see Tom, because you know the windows aren't tinted. Once you keep following him, you realize that he is going over through the countryside, and before you know it, he's being escorted by both the feds and Morella's gang to the airport, where he can make a getaway, knowing that this can only end bad for you and the gang if he escapes. You then proceed to chase him, and now this mission does involve some stealth, which if you do so gives you these extra set of dialogue. Now I did the loud approach because I was spotted instantly by the feds, and thanks to classic difficulty, I will however play the cutscene on where the stealth option is taken. You guys can follow the path that's been taken in this video. Credits to this guy by the way, if you want to take the silent approach.
Anyone know what's going on? There
with the FBI. It's some sort of handover. Someone's being flown out.
Well, they're handing him over to who? Those men with the plane looked like gangsters.
How long till they're done? I'm due to fly.
As soon as they fly their prisoner out, I guess. I don't know, a lot of these men don't look like cops.
Kept the lid on this so far. Let's get it done quietly and go home.
Morello hasn't even shown his face.
For a rat like you? Nah. Get in your car.
Why'd the feds take charge here?
So what happens next?
Once Morello gives us the books, our accountant guys will go through them with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah,
He
but
said to
won't
expect
Salieri's
trouble.
guys fly the coop before we're done?
No, that's why we round them up. Pin charges on them we know won't stick. Keeps them in their cells long enough for the scales.
But if you do want to enrage them, an entire scene of fighting with the cops takes place. Now this is quite an easy section. You don't even have to shoot through all of them. You just have to make a run straight towards where Frank's heading, even on classic difficulty. This wasn't really a hard section because I found myself acing through it within a few seconds, if not a minute at least. So don't waste your time trying to kill all the cops. Just run straight towards the place where Frank's heading. Once you make it there, you realize Frank's about to board on a plane and the pilot is also ready to take off. You then hold him at gunpoint and Frank is disappointed to see that it has to be you who has to take him out and not someone like Sam or Polly, whom he doesn't have a close connection with. You realize that the pilot has already been paid by either Feds or Morello. It's not clear who, but you pay him a second time to take them to wherever they want to go instead. Frank tells Tom that the logbooks are still in the bank and it's not in the hands of either the Feds or Morello, as he insists that he goes and takes the books before someone else does. Was just about to finish Frank for what he's done to you, you have second thoughts, knowing that Frank must have done this for the sake of his own family, and he also wants a break from all the pressure that he's been going being a prime gang member. You realize this and send Frank away, never to be seen again. After this, you make your way to the bank where you head straight to the vault and ask for the manager for the logbook. Apparently, Frank already told the manager that someone by the name of Angelo is going to come collect the books, so he leads you straight to the place where the books are located and you get a hold of it. Now you don't tell anyone that Frank has escaped, but you rather stage a fake funeral showing that you actually did kill him, and the logbooks are still with you. You then go ahead and burn the house of Frank, showing that you did kill him. And now what's odd is that Morello's gang did show up to give their respects, which was never done for any other gang members, and this is the first time you get to see both the Dons acknowledging each other by their first name, Morello being named Marco Morello and Salieri being named Ennio Salieri. After that, they pay their respects, they make a leave, and that brings an end to the mission. This is the first mission where you get to attend a funeral for one of your gang members, and you realize that even if the body isn't present, as long as one of the gang members who are loyal enough inform you that the person is dead, then they hold a funeral with or without the body, which sounds kind of messed up, but sometimes this is the reality. When you can't find a body, you have to host a funeral without it. And like I said at the start, there are more downfalls that are about to start in this session from here on out.
Now this scene opens up with you and Salieri going over through a rich neighborhood where Salieri claims that there actual houses more criminals than the total number of criminals that you can find in the city alone. But however, that's not what they're here for. They're here for another person to target, Witkins, who was a close friend of Ghilardi who was running for mayor again. So apparently, Witkins has now some leads on who killed Ghilardi's son, and this is bad for Salieri because we all know who actually did kill him. So Tom's job is to take care of it. It begins by going into his house, erasing all sorts of evidence possible, which is all locked up behind a safe, for which the Don actually hires someone from Italy named Salvador. The funny thing about Salvador is that for the entirety of the game he speaks Spanish, and his language is never translated even for us nor for Tom, so it kind of makes it up to show how one would feel without knowing Spanish, unless if you actually did learn Spanish, then shut up. But however, as you progress through the game, you'll notice that Tom understands bit by bit of what he tries to say, so that kind of makes it up for us as well. Once you make your way to the mansion, you realize that it's more of a maze that you have to take down a few guards before they alert the remaining people in the mansion. To do that, you have to use the stealth takedown option. There will be a couple of few guards here, and for some reason in my playthrough when I try to take out this guy, there's a guy that directly spawned right opposite of where I take him out, and he just instantly alerted everyone, which caused an instant mission failure. And the fun fact is that this guy wasn't even supposed to be there, he's supposed to be somewhere else. But regardless, I managed to get past him in the later playthrough. Once you make your way through the mansion, Salvador tells you to look for the paintings, because most of the time the safes are hidden behind paintings. Now there are two ways on how you can actually fail the mission here. One is by alerting the members within the house when you open up the wrong door, and sometimes you might get in the way of a household mate or an actual member of the family, so they might alert the people, and this will cause the cops to get you more quicker than usual. It doesn't fail a mission, but it just adds a nice level of detail to it. But let's say you manage to find the exact room and the exact painting without alerting anyone else, which I actually did during my second playthrough. When you open it up, Tommy makes a dumb decision by going straight into the vault, triggering the alarm and causing the police to swarm the area. So regardless of whichever option you choose, you will still be swarmed by the cops. So your only option is to bust your way out of there. Once you do, you get into a high-speed pursuit, which is easy to avoid. Just jump through these places and don't tumble over like I did. Once you make it out of there, you then drop Salvador back at his place, and that's where the mission concludes. Now whether the evidence is destroyed or it's just like an attempt that you tried doing it is unclear, because according to here, you tried to get it, but then you just forget about it. I don't know whether you actually did destroy it or not, but in the later chapters you notice that this is never brought up, so you can pretty much assume that it is destroyed. Now this chapter starts back at the warehouse where you have to sell every single one of your distillery stuffs because of lack of cash and the fact that the Canadians have been murdered, so there's no other business partners to do with. Luckily, Paulie has an option. As he was at the bar, he found someone who was interested in selling his distilleries to our gang, more than Morello's gang, because of how they treat him. Salieri, seeing this as a good option to take, sends you, Sam and Polly to meet the person, so that you can finalize the deal. On the way, you are accompanied with Carlo. Carlo isn't actually happy with the deal and tells Tom that there are a lot of flaws and he has to look out. Polly doesn't acknowledge it and is more concerned that he's got a deal and he doesn't want anyone to mess it up. Tom doesn't really want to do anything with either of them and just wants a job to be done. You then make your way into the parking lot where the deal is supposed to take place, and once you're there, you meet the guy. This is Gates. I'm not sure what his full name is, but yeah, that's his name. He produces distilleries within America itself, and so far it's been successful with Morello's gang. Tom gives it a try and find out it's average but good enough for the Don to finalize the deal once they collect the payment. Once they collect the payment, it has to look like the gang has actually stolen from Gates instead of him doing a deal. So Paul gives him a punch to show that it's been stolen and not settled. But just as they're about to leave, they were ambushed. Apparently, someone in our gang snitched to Morello's gang about the deal and kills out most of Gates' men and some of our men. Gates also took a hit, but luckily he was able to survive thanks to his body armor actually. Thanks to one of his henchmen also being alive, he tells us to leave and his other men will come pick him up. As you're making your way through a caraway, you're surrounded by multiple gang levels at each floor. This is the first mission where you actually get to try the grenades, which I've explained earlier, which is a much more powerful version of the Molotovs and can instantly take out a vehicle when you throw at it. Once you clear the section at the parking garage, you then have to follow Sam to make sure the goods stay in safe, and this involves damaging the other gang's vehicles that follow you going through the alleyway. This new area is called Hoverville, which is apparently a small slum-like area within the city that's been added a new intense field is already intense chasing. But despite all the shortcomings, you manage to make it out alive with a barely few bottles getting a hit. once you get back to Salieri to try out the new whiskey and see if it's worth it. Salieri approves and finalizes the deal, which ends in a small celebration. But there was a small problem with that. In this intermission, it's gotten known that the Prohibition era has come to an end, and because of that, the distillery has taken a huge hit, causing all that running settle their deal with the whiskey distiller meant absolutely nothing. But however, thanks to the ending of Prohibition, they were able to set up a lot of new businesses. Some of them were even legal. It ranged from bars, pubs, to even clubs being run under the Don's name. Then at this point, Salieri wanted to step out of Morello's shadow and wanted to become the new Don in town. Not that he wasn't it, but he wants to make a name for himself. This means that he wants to now hire his own set of politicians, his own set of cops, his own set of people that can get him out of any sort of trouble with ease as long as they held the power. This explains the events in 1934 according to Norman, where a politician has been taking bribes from both Morello and Salieri, but however wasn't favoring either of them. When Morello got to know this, he decides to threaten him by telling that his family will be buried under the sand alive. This prompted him to go back to Morello. Now this was an unresolved case in the Salieri family, and according to Tom, the very next year, when Morello finds out Salieri was making a name for himself, and since he didn't like that, is when he decided to sabotage it. The mission starts off at the bar, where Salieri asks you to drive to a nearby restaurant for a quick lunch, as his usual driver Carlos has called in sick. This is one of the few missions where you and Salieri have a conversation that's not related to business or gang or anything. It's purely personal, but for safer reasons, both of them have a gun in their possession just in case when they are driving. Salieri informs Tom about how his plans to become the next big Don, even displacing Morello from that position is, and how it's going to achieve with him and the gang, while Tom talks about what's going on with him, Sam and Polly, and how his business has been doing. Once you reach the place, you and Salieri start to have lunch, only to realize that Morello's gang somehow got to know that you were actually there, and before you can even think, a whole ambush emerges and the entire restaurant is damaged, with barely anyone surviving apart from you and Salieri. The gunfight still continues, and no other option, Salieri provides a distraction while you have to take them out from behind. Once you do that, you realize how angry Salieri gets and how he's drawn to the one person that he used to trust before, Carlos, the guy who called in sick because he was the only one who knew where he was headed. So, your next place is at Carlos. Now, even though it's risky to be the first person to go in because he might be waiting there to ambush Salieri doesn't really care, as he is filled with anger and he just wants to end that guy because he betrayed the family on whom you put out the trust. And once you reach there, Salieri beats the living fuck out of this guy, not even giving him a bit of spare time to breathe. But when he does, he makes a getaway. He doesn't even stay back to reason with the Don, saying that he isn't the one to do it because he very well knows that he is caught red-handed. So thus begins the chase scene between Tom and Carlos. Now this chase scene is pretty bland. It's pretty much how the first one played out, but instead of you running from the guy, you're trying to catch up with the guy, and as he starts climbing the stairs, that's when the game allows you to start shooting him. Once you shot him, you realize that he has a reason. Morello actually caught hold of his mother, and his only option was to betray the family just to make sure that his mother stays safe, which came at the cost of his life. But once the Don reaches that place, he doesn't even give him a chance to talk, and proceeds to smash him with his leg over and over again. It's gruesome that even the devs decided to censor it, and once it's done, you see a lifeless body there. And the Don, a bit calm from his anger, but still angry, walks up knowing that he is dead and the burden is no more on him. This is one of the few scenes where you get to see the angry side of Salieri and how violent one person can be when you start misusing their trust. While on the other side, Morello has his own anger to settle. He's beating up someone who's tried to start a riot at the docks, while another person of high status walks in. This is Sergio Morello, the younger brother of Marco Morello, and he is notoriously smart. His role in the Morello gang is similar to that of Frank. He's basically the Don's right hand, and anything that has to be done with respect to the gang has to go through him. He has also evaded death multiple times thanks to his wit and luck, making him sort of unkillable when he was tasked to kill Salieri, but we all know how the ambush went. Morello was quite mad about this, and despite Sergio warning Morello of an upcoming war,
This is what Morello had to say about it.
We've been at war since we killed Papone. It's just out in the open now.
Now keep this sentence in mind because it will come into play during the later stages of the game and what comes in the next chapter. Now this is the turning point and a wake-up call for Salieri gang. After everyone got to know that Salieri survived an assassination attempt, it is called for an all-out war between the two gangs. While you're exploring the bar, you get to see that it's been barricaded with planks, chairs, and everyone armed to the teeth, ready to fight when commanded. This is the peak moment for everyone, something that comes by once in a while. And once you make your way to the Don, you hear him tell him that he will halt protection for the people till the war gets over, and once it's done, he will only protect those who stayed on his side and not abandon him. While everyone on the gang is ready to kill Morello at this instant, Salieri wants to do it progressively, by taking out his main people first and then going to Morello later on. This way, Morello doesn't think straight, and when he's confronted during the final scene. Your first target is Gilotti, the guy Morello is trying to get re-elected. Now luckily it's his birthday, so he's celebrating it on a steamboat. You'll have to take him out over there. The only issue is they won't let you in with the weapons, so you'll have to disguise yourself, meet someone at the steamboat, and wait for Gilotti to give a speech. Once he does, you have the chance to take him out. Sam and Polly already have the outfit and getaway plan sorted out, but according to them, it'll only take a miracle for you to make it out alive once you're in there. You start taking up daily chores to make it look like you're a part of the crew, and once you get a chance, you start inquiring about the janitor who's going to help you in getting a weapon. However, while you're at it, someone starts to identify you, but you evade him at first. Once you make your way to the janitor, he guides you to near the motor of the boat where there's a gun located, and just before you can get there, the same guy who suspected you at first now confronts you, knowing that you work for Salieri. After a quick fistfight and for safe measures throwing him off board, you then make it to the room to get the gun. By then, all the members on board, both crew and passengers, are now on the front of the boat waiting for Gilotti to give his birthday speech. You use this opportunity to go on top of the roof and get a good vantage point at the stage, so you can kill him easily without getting spotted. You then wait as he finishes his speech, and once he does, the fireworks begin, and that's when you take your shot. You'd think that with all these distractions, you wouldn't be noticed. Well, according to this game's logic, it isn't the case, because as soon as you step out, you're surrounded by gang members trying to kill you for your actions. After a near-death experience, Polly and Sam come to you at a speedboat and you jump in. With no words to spare, you three make a getaway, barely making it out alive. Now I'm sure you'll be expecting some form of gratitude or at least a good job from any one of them, but nope. It just cuts to the next mission with no mention of the previous one at all. I know the disconnect between missions can get annoying, but we're almost halfway there through the video, so we should be done pretty soon enough. Now unlike other chapters, this one starts different, with a car chase scene. The one that's being chased is Sergio Morello, and the one chasing is Sam along with Vinny. But however, it was a failed attempt, as neither of them were able to catch him. Back at the bar where Salieri hands the job over to you instead, your task is simple. Rig Sergio's car and watch him explode. A simple task with almost no flaws, or so you thought, because I'm pretty sure you've known till now that anything that you plan out doesn't go as planned. Once you get to his house, you rig his car and pretend like you're an NPC minding your own business, only to realize that a wrong person entered the car and it's not him. Nothing is said about who she is, but let's assume her to be Sergio's wife, or a family member of Sergio. I tried looking up online, but I can't really find anything on her, so if you guys know who she is in the Sergio family members, let me know in the comment section below. You then abruptly cut your call with Sarah and call Vinny to inform him how things went south. As much as Vinny wants to sympathize with you, he can't because there's something more important that's been discovered, the location where Sergio currently is, and he wants Tom to be there as soon as possible. You make your way there, and even after telling Sam and Polly, who are waiting for you to be there, they just shrug it off and tell you to snap out of it. This shows that once you're in the gang, you should eliminate all forms of sympathy to anyone, as it hinders your performance and only makes things worse for you. Once you bust your way into the restaurant, Polly tries to kill Sergio, only to be cock-blocked by you because there's an innocent civilian in the way. And after that, a horde of enemies try to kill you three, while Sergio makes an escape. You kill them and you try to catch up with Sergio, but he makes a getaway. With no time to waste, you then take a nearby bike and start pursuing them. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say this over and over again, but add that sentence to the bike and you'll have what is an almost realistic driving experience you will ever get in any third-person game, like Mafia. With turns you take almost hitting the side of the pavement to almost slipping out of your bike because you're going too fast, this is peak realism in driving, which also adds the fact that it's quite hard to master. Luckily, this is the only time that you get to ride a bike, so you don't have to worry much about it ever again. This is also a nice twist where you're only meant to follow him. You can't shoot them even if you try to, because the game just won't let you to. While you're chasing them, Sam and Polly also accompany you with the stolen vehicle, but it's obvious why you are the more preferred driver than anyone else. Once you reach the railway yard, I think that's what it's called, I don't know. Anyways, once you reach there, you then battle through hordes of enemies sent through your way. Now I tried to sprint all the way to the end, but probably because of my skill issue and the fact that I was on classic difficulty made it quite difficult to do so. But it's not impossible, that's for sure, if you're on lower difficulty. And this is also the place where they try to get a sniper rifle if you want to, but if you couldn't, then no worries. There's a whole dedicated mission where you can use that to your advantage. Now once you kill everyone in this section, the game makes you unlock an oil rig, which then barrels all the way into the shed, busting a way open for you to progress. Now before you ask me anything, yes, I did try to kill him when I got the chance, but he has plot armor, so what can you expect? Once you make your way in, because of the tight space between enemies, it makes it extremely hard to just slide your way through this section, so you have no other option but to kill them as you progress through. You then corner Sergio in a room full of explosives. Sergio can't kill you as he ran out of ammo, but what's worse is, so have you. This makes him laugh in relief, thinking that he is still unkillable, until Tom pulls out the biggest plot twist out here by setting the whole place on fire, causing the entire junkyard to explode and instantly cutting to black screen, showing that the mission is complete. After killing Sergio, the whole city goes into a frenzy war mode between you and Morello, killing all the members of the gang and also the elites who are under their payroll. Slowly, one by one, you start taking them all out until it's only Morello and a handful of his members left. The day has finally come where this war can be brought to an end, a war that's been going on for the past 10 or so years. This has been a huge meet going on called Creme de la Creme, which is also the mission's name, hosted by Morello himself after coming out of his hiding for so long. Your only target is him, no one else comes in the way and no one else is a priority of killing but him. Once you make your way there, it's a perfect coincidence that Morello was also leaving the meet at the same time, which alerts Morello and the crew to be brought into a chase scene. You thought it would be simple, but nope, there are still cops under his payroll and some of his last remaining gang members to defend him. While chasing him, you realize that he intends to make a getaway from the city on his plane, and knowing how screwed you all will be if it ever happens, you three use that one motivating factor to pursue him further down into the hangar. Once you reach there, he has already boarded a plane, and with no time to think, you will all get into the car to blow up the engines. This causes the plane to go on a free fall, and you will have to follow that, something which GTA 5 would shamelessly steal 12 years ago. The plane makes a crash landing at a nearby racetrack, and Morello barely alive. You then fire an entire magazine at him, putting away his misery and bringing an end to the reign of Morello. While Salieri back at the bar gives one last toast to Morello before taking over as the biggest Don to exist at the time. While looking at the picture of himself, Morello and Pepone, whom we mentioned earlier was the first Don in the city who helped establish the path for the future Dons, it's one of the more shorter action-packed missions out there, but I'm not complaining. But at the start, when you were about to take out Morello, there was one question that no one was certain what the answer was. What happens when you no longer have a competition to worry about? Or what happens when you're at the top? Then what? This question has been lingering on Polly and Tom's mind, but Sam doesn't really think about it. He's just happy to know that all this has come to an end. You then cut back to the fourth and last intermission, where it's known that Norman was after you for 3 whole years, and now that you're right in front of him, he can just take you in for life or even death sentence. But however, you reveal your true intentions to Norman. yours and your family's safety for Salieri's and his family's imprisonment, and Norman's reputation. Although hesitant at first, he decides to go with it, pulling the same picture that you saw Salieri had in his room along with two other members. Now, according to official records, Don Pepone has unfortunately drowned, making it look like an accident. But remember what Morello told at chapter 13?
We've been at war since you killed Pepone. It's just out in the open now.
So it's quite obvious that Morello was one of them who has killed Don Pepone. But he did mention the word we. This raises a doubt. Who is the other person who has helped him? We can assume that the second person who has helped him is Sergio. Since those two are in the room, we can imply that the we meant both of them, both Sergio and Marco Morello. But the previous sentence before this negates Sergio and points it towards Salieri. Even though Mafia Wiki claims that it's both Sergio, Salieri and Morello, the Reddit community says otherwise. So it's not clear on who the second person is, but Morello is definitely one of the two suspects who was responsible for killing Pepone. Just that no one till now knows about that. What makes this case so perplexing is that Morello and Salieri were best of friends, to a point where in Morello's wedding, Salieri was his best man, which begs another question. Why did Salieri decide to go on a war with Morello? In simple terms, we can chuck this as jealousy and greedy for more power, but what if our previous statements where it was Morello and Sergio who killed Pepone, and Salieri gets and evenly split the territory? This can be a possibility, but it's not clearly known because of this loophole. If any of you guys do know the answer, please do let me know in the comment section below. Now with that out of the way, everyone, including us, wants to know why Tom wants all of this to end if everything is going fine for him. For over 3 years, things went calm and usual. Until today, where your routine of giving yours, Sam's and Polly's share of business income to Salieri. Salieri realizes that Polly's share is less, but Tom compensates that by giving more from his side. This is where you see Salieri a bit frustrated that you are helping someone else and not yourself. It can just be that he is reminded of his past time with Morello and doesn't want the same to happen with us three. Once he's done with his rambling, he then tells us to handle a new problem. A person named Turnbull who's running for mayor. Now this wouldn't be a problem for any mafia gangs, just pay them a huge sum to do what you want them to do, but this mayor is different, as his main aim itself is to start dismantling each of Salieri's businesses one by one. Our job is to, you guessed it, take him out. Vinny has a connection to an old prison who helps him keep a sniper at this tower, which isn't that far from where Turnbull would give a speech, so it shouldn't be a problem to reach there. Once you reach the prison, the guy then helps you go to the tower by following the signs that say read "not allowed" or "get out of here." These signs are done so that to the people who live there, it looks like an extra measure to keep them safe, but to you, it's a path to the tower. There will be some people shouting at you to leave the place thinking that you are a cop or something, but luckily a woman gives you good advice on this place.
You know the guard tower?
It's up through the main cell block. Gate's locked most of the time. Keep the feds out.
Thanks.
Be careful in here, stranger. We're protective of our own.
Once you get there, you'll have access to the sniper rifle. Now if you didn't make use of it on the previous missions, this is where you can get to use it. It is in fact just a bolt-action rifle with a scope attached to it. No difference except for the range. You then look from the distance to see Turnbull giving his speech, and at this time you have nothing to wait for. No fireworks, no distractions, no particular reminder that you'll have to shoot at a particular time. You just have a target in front of you and it's your turn to take the shot whenever you feel it. Now I thought that something different might play if you let him complete his speech, but the game instantly fails you, so you have no other option but to take the shot. Once you kill him, you then realize that through some telekinesis power that they're now going to scan the old prison building, as that's where the shot was heard. You then make a getaway, but
Shit. How long have I been out?
now you're gravely injured. You'll then have to find the nearest medkit, while in the background you can hear the cops have made their way to the building and are searching for you. You find a nearby medkit and a lever to open the gate. Forgot to mention this, but certain gates are locked and the lever is the only option that you have. Open them. It's unclear how they got themselves logged in because they actually control this place, but let's just assume that they fumbled and got themselves logged in. Now the next plan is to make your way out while all the cops start beating innocent people, thinking that they know who made that shot. Now you can actually cheese through this entire section by just running through this hole, but for me I was instantly gunned down by the cops once I got myself cornered. So my suggestion there is to kill the cops till you reach the main intersection of the building, and then from there just make a straight run into through this broken wall, and you find once you're one floor below where you are supposed to be. Once outside, you now have a wanted level to clear, so it's pretty straightforward. Just take a car and randomly roam around the city, hoping that they eventually forget that you exist and stop chasing you. Once that's done, you make your way back home to Sarah, which is where you get to see the other side of Turnbull. The only reason why you killed him in the first place is because of him going to shut down yours and Salieri's businesses, but on the other hand, he was responsible for the 19th Amendment. Now, even though the guy himself is fictional, the 19th Amendment is an actual amendment which allows women to vote, and it was a huge change in the US. Now, knowing this, he now has a small sense of regret, but because he has a daughter who would be benefited from this. Now he knows that it's best to think twice before anything can happen, which brings the next chapter. In this mission, the usual three of you, along with Don, are testing some premium cigars which have been imported. The Don's task is simple. These types of cigars are the same that they are currently held under import customs, and we have to get it out. Now Tom isn't too happy about this, since selling imported cigars sounds small time and it's already been there for ages, which then reveals the Don's actual plan, smuggling real diamonds. And this time, since it's held in the docks, you can't do the usual bust in to steal method, but rather disguise and sneak method is your only option. However, despite all the plans laid out, Tom still isn't satisfied with the reason behind all of this. Even if it's diamonds that they're smuggling, it still seems too much of a risk to take, not to mention that it's the FBI that they'll be dealing with, not the regular cops. This is where you get to see Sam's lack of vision but loyalty to the Don. Even if it's risking his own and his own friend's life, he's ready to do the things which concerns Tom and Polly. You then get into the vehicle and begin to drive, but unlike your usual drive, it's a long cutscene explaining how Polly doesn't like what he's doing and wants to do something big for the gang and decides to rob a bank, with giving Salieri a cut of the earnings to make sure they stay even. But Sam, someone who's closer to Salieri than both of us, informs us that even if the cut is offered, it's not worth doing it because you're doing something without the Don's notice, something that was told at the start with the word trust.
That's right. Now you stay straight with me, you're going to be living the high life, Tom. But you abuse my trust.
Polly understands this and decides to ditch the plan. Once you make your way through into the docks, your next task is to get a customs truck and sneak your way in. Now there is no fixed location because the spawn of the truck varies at times, but for the most part it should be somewhere around here. So if it isn't, then you'll have to roam around the streets praying that the RNG favors you and drops one. After that, you then get into the truck, bring it to Sam and Polly, who now have disguises, and you hide back in the truck till you reach the warehouse. Once you reach the warehouse, Sam and Polly distract the initial guy somewhere else while you make your way into the warehouse. Now a quick tip here, you just need to avoid the guards who can alert you with the gunfire. Other people who can melee you can just be avoided by finishing them to finish the mission faster, but if you want to take them out, you can do that as well. Just don't take them out if they're near guards or they will mission fail you. You make your way into the first warehouse, which has the information on where the crates have been impounded. Make sure to take out this guy because he's a pain in the ass while avoiding, and to skip unnecessary documents, the file is in the middle room. Once you collect that, you'll realize that the crate is located at Sector D2, which isn't that far from the current warehouse that you're at. Once you make it there are 3 guards that you have to take out and about 8 to 9 crates to search. To save some time, just go to the left side where you kill the last guard, go down the stairs and search the last crate near the light source, and that's the crate you'll be looking for. Once done, you then open the shutter to see Sam and Polly waiting for you to load the shipment.
After that, you make a getaway, but not a smooth one, as you're soon hunted by cops, and this section is horrifying. Before you can even run away, these guys can obliterate your truck's health in minutes. I barely got out alive after that section, but trust me, one fumble and it's an instant mission failure. You also have roadblocks to dodge, not that ramming through them wasn't an option, but in return you will get your heat back and your vehicle will take damage, so it's best to avoid them as much as possible. Once you're done, you go back to the warehouse and start inspecting the boxes, in case of any damages from the shooting. But as you're doing so, you realize that there was no diamonds, but rather drugs, specifically dope, and this devastates all three of them because remember what Salieri told us at the start of the game?
Second, we don't deal in the hard stuff. I don't want any dope fiends in this neighborhood. We'll let Morella poison his own people if that's what he wants.
Yeah, he now goes against the very foundations that he has set for the gang. Tom and Polly now know that this isn't the Salieri they know. Sam acknowledges this too, but he doesn't seem too bothered about it. Once the Don arrives, you then cover up your discovery and ask the boss if you need any help. The Don denies, which isn't to anyone's surprise because it's quite obvious why, and asks Sam to take them home. Sam asks if Paul and Tommy want to accompany them, which they denied, and instead decides to take the tram back home. On the way, discuss about the plan of robbing the bank, while talking about the difficulties Polly is going through. After hearing all this, thinking about his future as well, Tom agrees on joining him as well, which brings the end of this chapter and on to the next one. You and Polly then suit up to rob the bank. Nervous at first, but since it's the last job and you have a goal to accomplish, you shove your fear aside and begin the heist itself. The first few parts go smoothly. You get everyone in control, knock the guards, and take the manager hostage to access the vault. Once you get into the vault, the manager betrays and commands the guards to take you out, but his plan backfires as you kill them all. Now you can collect the key from the manager and you can kill him if you want to, but that's an optional thing. Once you unlock the vault, you then grab the cash to make a getaway for it while meeting resistance on the way in the form of cops. Once you shoot your way through the cops and make a getaway, you then head towards Sam's warehouse where at the moment is left empty. You both split up and agree to meet at Polly's place when things settle down to share the cash. A relatively short mission, only padded out by gunfight and the driving, but I mean, till now, since the second half of the game, which mission isn't actually padded out by gunfight right now? The main reason why even if we were to give a cut to Salieri and still in good terms doesn't seem to work is because the bank we robbed, the Great Imperial, also helps Salieri launder his money, making it look legit. In case you don't know what laundering is, many online videos exist on how laundering is done and what it actually is, but here's a quick overview. You make some money illegally, by which means the government officials don't know of, and you want to make it look like you made it through legal means. So you then own a legal business and use that to earn some money. Now how much ever you want to earn is optional and not your concern, similar to what Salieri did at chapter 16, where the tobacco product was just a cover while the diamonds were the real deal. Once you make some money, you then combine the earnings of that with the earnings of your illegal business and then launder it, aka crumble it, wash it up, make it look like it's gone through multiple hands of citizens before it came to you. And then alter the accounts books just in case the raid ever so happens. You can show the accounts book to show your innocence and they will let you be. After that, congratulations, you now successfully laundered money and I learned while laundering it. Please don't do it at home though. And since we robbed from that bank, you can pretty much expect that Salieri won't be happy once he gets to know about it. Now we are at the final chapter of the story. Tom tensed as always, cause even though he is just going to collect the cash, his mind is all around what he just did a few months ago, and the safety of his family is another thing he fears of. But knowing that all this is in the past, he just has to collect the money and make a getaway. He then makes it to Polly's home. Another fun Easter egg is if you leave the radio on, you can hear the broadcast tell this.
Police say they still have no solid leads in the case of the audacious bank robbery that recently shocked the city. The victors of the Battle of the Grand Imperial, as it's become known, remain at large. The robbery, in which armed thugs emptied the vault and left a trail of dead, was one of the largest recorded in the state by dollar amount. The raid was executed with a high degree of violence, and although successful, did not seem to be the work of professional bank robbers. That is according to a source within the FBI who has spoken to a Courier journalist on the condition of anonymity. At the time of the robbery, the chief of police was adamant that those responsible would be brought to justice swiftly, and that all the resources of the Lost Heaven Police Department were available to the case's lead investigator. Conducting numerous interviews and fielding calls from the public, an actionable lead has yet to be forthcoming. The chief of police has stated that those with any information about the robbery or the perpetrators can anonymously contact their local police station. As time passes, the greater the pressure on the chief to achieve results. If he's unable to secure justice for those slain that day, and due to the violence meted out, it must only be a matter of time before the G-men take over. Thank you for listening.
Which is a nice detail to add on, but once you reach the Polly's apartment and you see the door left open, you with your guard up, you open the door to see Polly on the floor, dead with a bullet on his head. It's clear that whoever killed him isn't happy with the score. While Tom really mourns for Polly's death, his main purpose is the money. So he searches the room from top to bottom but couldn't find any cash, and coincidentally gets a call on Polly's telephone. Answering it, you hear Sam on the other hand trying to reach to Polly but unaware of what has happened to him. You then tell him what has been done to Polly and asks to meet him up at the art gallery so Sam can help him with some money for Tom and his family to make a getaway. Once you reach there, you realize that there are hitmen waiting for you, and at the topmost floor, Sam looks down at you with the share of cash that Polly has kept, disappointed that you carried on with the plan without his knowing. He also revealed that he killed Polly because the Don got to know and asked him to, further proving that he is loyal but directionless. He will do anything to prove his loyalty, even if it's for the wrong and even if it involves taking out someone whom he has known longer than he has known Tom. He even criticizes Tom for letting Frank and Michelle go. Yep, that girl whom Sam had feelings for.
Don't go anyplace yet. Gotta hear me out on this. It's about the girl.
Michelle?
Right. You don't have to rub her out. Just make her disappear.
You know her?
Yeah. I've been with her a few times. She's a good egg, Tom. Just maybe not so bright. She doesn't deserve to get plugged just 'cause she likes listening to me talk.
You think she'll leave town?
When she understands what'll happen otherwise, yeah, she'll leave. Here's 100. Give it to her. And make sure she gets far away.
Okay, Sam. I'll see what I can do.
That's all I'm asking. Let's go.
Yep, that same girl whom Sam had feelings for and has asked you to give her freedom. He now criticizes you for it, further proving his directionless attitude, knowing that this is the only way he can climb up the ladder to prove his worth to the Don. After that long speech, he then initiates the kill on Tom, but being the protagonist, you know you won't be taken down that easily. After surviving hordes of enemies and trying to injure Sam, who is somehow immune to damage because of plot armor, except for 2 sequences where you can injure him but not kill him. Once you cap his knee, he curses you while you yell back at him for what a backstabbing friend he has been and all that. Once that's done, there is one final segment before you and Sam go head to head. I don't know if he has plot armor on him or not, but it almost took me an entire magazine just to take him out. Once you again injure him somehow after that whole magazine, he then makes an offer where if he lets him live, he will tell the Don that he has been killed and they will stop chasing you, basically wiping you from the face of their radar. But after what he did to Polly, you don't buy that deal. You then may ask about Frank's whereabouts, and that's where he tells you that he fled to Europe and started betting on dog tracks. A friend of one of Salieri's men found him and informed Salieri about it, and they sent hitmen to take him out. His wife and daughter's whereabouts are still unknown because they are irrelevant. It's only him that matters to the Don. Tom tries to take him out, but as you've seen in the past, the attachment that he has with Sam and the emotions that he has prevents him to do so. But after some yapping from Sam, trying to buy some time for him to leave, you overcome the one thing that's been holding you about. Ironically, it's the same thing that Sam gave it to you in the previous mission.
Thanks again, Sam.
It's not anything you wouldn't do for me.
I know. But when you come that close to biting it, Christ, it's something.
Don't need to tell me about that. Just don't think about it. Best lesson I could ever teach you. Don't think about anything.
Blood spills on the money that he scattered at the start, showing that no matter how much of money you got, there's always at least one life that has been taken for it. With now you being the official traitor of Salieri gang, bringing you to the current time with Norman, where he really appreciates the details but needs Tom to testify against them in the court. In other words, he has to sit in the box and start betraying Salieri and his gang face to face. Even though it's only Salieri who has to face consequence and not his crew, this isn't how the law works. Even if you are associated with murder or illegal activities, you are indirectly involved in it, even if you weren't the face of it. And that's all the court wants to know. Which brings not only Salieri to life in prison, but also people who didn't deserve it, like Vinny, Ralphie, Luigi, etc. They were only there to make a living wage, but sadly for the wrong person and at the wrong time. Tom is aware of this and ready to do the same, but really stresses out on getting his family a new life and new identities to escape. Norman does agree to this, but directly tells Tom that this will be a really long time. Tom decides to make an escape for himself, but Norman stops him and starts talking relating to Tom to ease his conscience and worry. Norman addresses the risks involved in this and how it can even lead to either him or Tom getting killed sooner or later. Tom understands this, and regardless if he dies or not, Norman gets to crack Morello's case and put an active Don behind bars, which itself is a legacy on his own that he can hold. Being able to bring someone of great power to a jail cell while being alive and well, at the cost of having a target behind your back, which is a huge threat you'll have to keep on the lookout for life. The screen cuts to black, and what happens next is explained in segments, but we are brought to the final chapter. 13 years later, you see a wedding with a man and Tom's daughter. You see an old Tom walking his daughter down the aisle. Once at the dining table, you proceed to give a speech about family, how important it is to a man and how he'll do anything to make sure his family stays less burdened. Because of that, it was an Achilles heel, the weakest point of a man. While segments of Tom, Salieri, and the rest of the gang were shown getting mugshots and arrested. Salieri set for life imprisonment, Vinny and Ralphie convicted and arrested. It's just unknown what their sentences are, unfortunately. In the speech, he mentions that he spent 8 years in prison, while the first few years he was going insane, the rest he started working on himself, to become a better husband, a better father, and more importantly, a better man. Which shows that family can also be the man's greatest strength, a great motivator to do things that were otherwise impossible. Cut a few months ahead and you see Tom doing his daily chores, while a car pulls ahead at your porch. Inside, two people go to meet Tom, directly addressing him by his real name and not his alias one, assuming that he did get one. Lets him know that Salieri is the one who sent them. Now I would like to point out how detailed this interaction is. As soon as Tom hears someone addressing his real name, he understands that his time has come. He drops his hose, turns slowly towards them, and once the other guy points the gun, Tom gives a smirk, knowing that with his life gone, his family will no longer have to worry about anyone coming to kill them. Ironically, the gun used is Lupara, the same one you were tasked to kill Frank with, but you refused to do so, only for the same treatment to not return here. Now you may be wondering who these two people are. This is Vito Scaletta and Joe Barbaro, the two protagonists of the next Mafia franchise, Mafia 2, which mostly will be the next video in the works. So if you'd like to see that, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss out any of my uploads. There's a whole dedicated mission to where you do the exact same thing that was done in the epilogue as well, but I'm not going to go beyond that. Once done, the screen fades to black and the credits roll. One great detail update that the game has is once you finish story mode, there's no way for you to go back into free roam until you start another story mode. To save some time, load up a new game, put the difficulty level you desire, skip the cutscenes, leave the main story of the game into the main menu, and then you can get access to the free roam. The free roam acknowledges you as someone who has already played the game and has completed everything, so it unlocks everything from the start. Now, apart from playing around, getting the cops to chase you, and getting that sweet 100% achievement which I'll get to in a bit, there's one more reason why you must play the free roam. Side missions are only accessible in free roam and can be found in the form of notes across the Salieri bar, except for a few which I shall get to in a bit. These are all left by a man named Herbert Baskerville. Nothing much is known about this guy, only that he does like to leave a lot of mission notes on your bar, almost like as if he's stalking you or something. But aside from that, there are 12 side missions that you will have to do. There's no particular order in which you'll have to complete, assuming that you have completed the entire story mode by now. If not, then you'll have to complete a certain main story mission in order to unlock the side mission. I will also mention that during this exploration, it's only the final side mission where you need to complete all the other side missions in order to unlock it, but for the sake of it, I will be going through this particular order. If suppose you complete the story mode, the order doesn't matter except for the last one. And these don't add anything new to the story, it's just side content to make the free roam at least worth exploring rather than just a playground with no content to do there. This letter can be found in the pool table and can be unlocked once you complete the first mission, aka the offer you can't refuse. This is what the letter reads.
Dear friend, I have been watching you for some time. You possess a ferocious spirit and are a man of great potential. I am seeking a partner, someone who shares my taste for freedom and disorder. If you want to learn more, head to the most westerly point in Little Italy and listen out for a bell. Herbert Baskerville.
This is the location that you'll have to go, and once you reach there, there'll be a telephone ringing. You'll need to answer it and it'll hand over you the job.
Hello, my friend. I am delighted that you decided to join me. I recently acquired a couple of very special vehicles. If you deliver mine in pristine condition, I will have yours sent to your garage. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
You'll have to deliver a car named Crazy Horse at the destination within a given time and no collisions. Hitting other cars, immovable objects, pedestrians, basically anything that can damage the car in any way can make your run void. Now this sounds pretty simple. With your 6 to 7 hours of driving car experience, you'll have no issues driving this one, right? Right? Yeah, this one has one issue. The name wasn't kidding. It's actually a crazy horse of a vehicle. It's in fact the fastest car in the entire game, reaching speeds so high that even the speedometer can't display it. So you can tell with that amount of speed on how the handling will be. It's no better than the race car you drove in Chapter 5, just with more speed and more chances of you running into a wall. There's no exact real counterpart for this vehicle, mainly because of its heavy modification, but while digging around, the Mafia Wiki suggests that it's a heavily modified Ford Model A from 31. But even they aren't so sure about it, so for now we can just assume that it's a complete unique car designed specifically for this mission. Completing the mission unlocks the car for you, having all stats maxed out so you can use it during the free roam and or during the story mode if you haven't completed it yet. This letter can be found in the planning room on the table where the pizza is left. It can be unlocked once you complete the mission Running Man, aka Chapter 2, and this is what it reads.
Dear friend, I have so much more to share with you. Rendezvous in the northeast of Holbrook. I believe your current employer has interests nearby. Herbert Baskerville.
Herbert wants us to meet up at this location where the telephone will be ringing. Answering that will give you a new task.
There is something wrong with old Betty. She's a beautiful ride and it will break my heart to scrap her. She's all yours if you manage to get her to my mechanic across town. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Sounds simple enough, but not only will you be driving with the time limit, but the car consumes fuel faster than Badlands chugging a glass of Coke. So you'll have to make multiple stops in nearby gas stations to ensure that you don't run out of fuel. A small tip,
While you're driving, make sure not to press your accelerator button continuously, but rather at an interval pace so you don't consume as much fuel as you intend to. There are only 3 fuel stations nearby that you can use. Now I know what you're thinking. What happens if you run out of gas? Will you stall and fail the mission? No, not really, but your car will do the really odd interval acceleration that I can compare to how old people walk with a stretcher, and your speed is limited to a maximum of 20 miles per hour, and sometimes your car can come to a complete standstill when going uphill, so good luck trying to get your vehicle out of there. I barely made it out thanks to a small boost that the car decided to give at the end. Delivering the car unlocks the same in your garage, but nothing to worry, as the gas mileage is the same as any other car. The car is the Smith Murray, which is the only automatic vehicle present in this entire Mafia game. Ironically, it's the same one used by these two during the epilogue. It's got a decent acceleration and probably the best handling I've ever experienced in the entire game. It doesn't spin out like the other vehicles, and while not as fast as others, still has a decent speed. This letter can be found at the corner side of Salieri's bar and can only be obtained once you complete the chapter Ordinary Routine. And this is what it reads.
Dear friend, I have been working on something rather special. My laboratory is located at the Fire Dam Power Station. Further instructions will be provided upon arrival. Herbert Baskerville.
This is where the telephone booth is, and getting over there you're given another task to complete.
I see that your curiosity got the better of you. I'd like you to put my prototype through its paces. If you make it around the course in time, you can keep the car. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
It requires you to do a trail with the prototype car he made. If you do well, the car is yours. This is pretty and straightforward, no strings attached to it except for the obvious timer. You have to go through a series of checkpoints that only shows up once you get to the previous checkpoint, so sometimes you might be going through at a fast pace to claim a checkpoint, only for the other one to pop out in the exact opposite direction where you were supposed to go. So a small tip, if you see a checkpoint near a turning point, do slow down and not ram into it like a madman. Once you complete it, you can then take it down. You can then unlock the car, the Mutigan, based off the Renault 40 CV. Not only does it have 1 gear, but it appears to be an electric vehicle, but it still uses gas, so it technically isn't. It has a great acceleration and top speed, but horrendous handling. You'll have to slow down to a crawl if you want to make a turn. I wouldn't recommend using this car unless if you want to have fun in it. This mission can be found in the milk container at the stairways near the back entrance of Salieri's bar and can be unlocked once you complete the chapter Sarah. This is what it reads.
Dear friend, I got word that a former associate is back in town. If you want to hear more, just find the giant cup in downtown and head west. Herbert Baskerville.
This is the location that you'll have to go, where you'll get a phone call, and answering that gives you the next mission.
My last partner locked himself in the vault of the Grand Imperial Bank. There is something of value on his person. Bring me his body. You can keep the rest. I'll have a car waiting outside. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Now this mission is pretty straightforward, but odd at the same time. Someone whom Hector Baskerville knew is stuck inside a vault, and instead of helping him out, you'll have to kill him, take his body, and then give it to someone in the truck, and you get rewarded with this costume. Once you reach there, you'll find the person whom you'll have to kill. Now if this person seems familiar, that's because he's a recurring character in the Mafia franchise. In this one, he's just mute and he has nothing to say other than the grunts from getting shot at. But in the third installment, he has a name, a slight character development, and although not noticeably great, but it's still better than nothing. His name is Captain Pennies, a man known for patronizing prostitutes while wearing a clown makeup. He was one of the big 3 spenders at the Guys Gentlemen Club, but he isn't relevant for now because he isn't in this game at all. Apart from that, nothing else is known about him, but hey, it's just better than a randomly appearing NPC in the game for no reason. Once you kill him and take his body to the nearby truck for transport, you unlock his outfit and a gold shotgun. Apart from a larger magazine and more shots per round, and having a nice gold finish, there isn't really a technical benefit in having one, and you really can't use it in story mode, so that's one major limitation here. This mission can be found at the small round table in the upper office of Salieri and can be collected by completing the chapter The Saint and the Sinner. And this is what it reads.
Dear friend, we are being invaded. Head to the Works Quarter trolley station for a briefing. Come at night. Trust no one. And watch the skies. Herbert Baskerville.
Which take you to this telephone booth at this location and provide you the mission detail.
Friends from outer space are abducting our citizens and replacing them with clones. Chase their ship and thwart their plans. Should you succeed, I have a fitting trophy for you. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Now this mission is the weirdest and the hardest, as you'll be chasing a literal UFO that'll try to abduct people for whatever reasons. And good luck trying to catch up with that thing, because that thing travels faster than the plane Morello tried to make a getaway from. Your best chances are to use the Crazy Horse vehicle and memorizing the points where the UFO will arrive to claim its next victim. Luckily, these are the points where they will be trying to abduct people in this order, so be there early thanks to this vehicle and you'll pretty much ace it. Although during the latter stages it'll be harder, so just a quick warning over there. At the end, the UFO will go to a lighthouse where it'll have to take out several aliens, who are just guys in an alien head costume within a time limit, and take out the ship that only takes 1 bullet. It's okay guys, you guys can come back next time, I'm sure you have better resources there. After that, you guys are met with 2 people in this shiny looking omelette and proceed to flashbang you back to Salieri's bar. Now if this looks familiar, that's cause this is a direct reference to Men in the Black, where the flash is meant for us to forget what we saw, so a pretty nice reference here. After that mission back at Salieri's bar, you can now wear the same alien costume that you saw back at the final mission. Just the usual cosmetics here, no benefits in any way whatsoever, and you can't even use it in story mode because the outfit is predetermined based on the chapter you are at. This mission can be found at the end of Salieri's bar and can be unlocked after completing this chapter on Omerta. The letter reads as follows.
Dear friend, I am embroiled in a commercial disagreement that requires your expert arbitration. Details will be provided in the usual manner at the entrance to the Lost Heaven Harbor. Herbert Baskerville.
Now this is where you're supposed to go and answering the telephone, and this is what the mission details are given.
My partners at the harbor took umbrage over some misplaced paperwork and are refusing access to some valuable cargo. Escort my shipment through the harbor and I will make it worth your while. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
There's nothing too new or unique about this mission. It's just you killing waves of gang members, letting the truck that you're supposed to protect pass through safely, go to another point, kill more waves of gang members, and that's pretty much it. Your reward for all of this is a gold revolver, the same gun with more ammo per round and a gold appearance. Also, this mission can get buggy sometimes, cause if you're playing this in classic difficulty, even though you completed killing all of them, the mission will not progress, and that's because one of them had their pathfinding broken, so you'll have to manually get off the platform and search for that person to kill him. Also, make sure to be armed at all times, else you might get one-tapped if you're careless. This mission can be found in the planning room far end where the punching bag is. It can also be unlocked once you complete the chapter The Great Deal, and this is what it reads.
Dear friend, I understand you have experience in the art of race fixing. We need somewhere discreet to discuss this matter further. Suggest east of the graveyard in Oakwood. Herbert Baskerville.
Now you'll have to go to this location, answer this telephone, and you'll get your next mission details.
Your adventures at the track inspired me to dabble in some race fixing. Take the cars I provide and swap them across town. If you bring the last car back in good time, it's all yours. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Now this is a race fixing scene where you'll have to swap cars between each owners. Something like swapping glasses with one of them having poison, except that none of them are poisonous or rigged. Anyways, the point here is that there are 3 cars spread across the town and you'll have to swap them respectively. Now the one thing here that I noticed is that the checkpoints are not counted unless if you park the car that you're on onto the ramp and then take the next car. Not when you leave the car right next to the ramp and take the next car. That doesn't count the checkpoint. I found this very odd, but again, it's a very nitpicking situation. I wouldn't even call it a downside because it's kind of realistic, but once you complete the mission, you unlock the same car that you used in Chapter 5 to win the race, and also the same car that you rigged to prevent Morello from trying to win the race, the Brubaker Forte and the Carazella C Series, based on the real counterparts 1933 Studebaker GP and the Alpha 8C GP Monza. Long story short, great speed, decent handling, not really recommended unless if you can manage the handling.
Dear friend, I am awaiting a very valuable shipment. There's a parking garage on Central Island. I believe you are familiar with it. Go there and I'll tell you what to do next. Herbert Baskerville.
This is what the letter wants you to go, and he answered this telephone, which gives you the details of the next mission.
I need to move a package across town. Unfortunately, the rightful owner of said package wants it back. I hired a driver already. You just need to provide protection. You can keep the gun.
You have to protect this car while hordes of gang members try to take you out. This is a very easy mission as we have seen before. Taking out other cars is not a hard thing, and at this time you are the passenger, so you can whip out your Tommy gun and start blasting on them, knowing that either you take the driver out or the car. Once all that's done, the driver will take you to the destination and the mission ends. You'll unlock the gold Tommy. Same as before, same gun with higher ammo per round, and you can't access it on story mode. There's no catch to this or any tips or tricks to win this mission cause it's just that simple. A literal toddler can complete it with no issues.
Dear friend, we have an urgent and rather explosive problem. I am waiting to talk. Head to Pepe's and you'll hear me calling. Herbert Baskerville.
Now this game wants you to go to this location, answer this telephone, and get access to the mission.
I planted some bombs on a few cars this morning. Turns out it was all just a silly misunderstanding. Could you dump those cars in the water before they explode, please? This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Now this can be hard or easy depending on how you approach it. If you start with the very last car, then you can complete this mission without having to worry about the timing, but if you start with the closest car, then you'll have to worry about it because of how far the last car is. There are 3 places where you can dump the cars, one over here and the other 2 being somewhere in this radius. I found that approaching the one near this area to be the easiest because it's quite accessible, unlike the other 2 where you'll have to go down a flight of stairs to actually access it. So here's my 2 cents. Use only this ramp and nothing else. Dispose one car, get access to another vehicle, doesn't matter which one. Don't try to picklock it, try to break the window of it and get in. Drive to the other car, dispose that car and go and rinse and repeat. Your reward for all of this unlocks a new outfit called the Boxer costume. Pretty nice, but again, you won't be able to use it on story mode sadly. This mission is available at the end of the conference room at Salieri's bar and can be unlocked after completing the chapter just for relaxation. This is what the letter reads.
Dear friend, my most dangerous adversary has returned. There's a disused service station in Chinatown. You know the place, I'm sure. Find a booth nearby and I'll tell you what I know. Herbert Baskerville.
You want to go to this location on the map and answer the phone booth, and you'll get your mission details.
My nemesis has rigged a bus to explode if it drops below a certain speed, and he's challenged me to prevent it. Keep the bus going faster than 30 miles per hour while I have the bomb defused. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Now if this mission sounds familiar, that's because it's based off the 1994 movie called Speed, in which again a bus has been rigged, and you'll have to maintain over a certain speed to prevent the bomb from going off. It's really a great film for those who haven't watched it, and I highly recommend giving it a try because movies like that are just timeless classics, and you'll never get to see those kind of movies ever again. or at least for now. Now this can be a challenging mission because as you might have explored the entirety of Lost Haven by now, there are quite a lot of small streets. Hence why I recommend doing this mission during at nighttime where there's less traffic, and also stick to the highways mainly in a straight line. You can follow the path that I've taken during this video, so I'll speed up the footage so you can actually see where I've been traveling to. Or for easier understanding, this is a route similar to what I've taken, courtesy of Mafia Wiki. Once you complete the mission, it unlocks the mechanic costume. Same as before, it's nice to have, but you can't use it in story mode.
Dear friend, I have an invention that needs to be tested. I'll reveal all when we can talk in person. I'll be calling a phone booth in the south of Holbrook, near where you murdered poor Carlo, Herbert Baskerville.
The letter wants you to go to this location on the map and answer the telephone, and you get your mission details.
I have devised a revolutionary motorcycle. All I need you to do is prove that she drives as good as she looks. If you're quick, you can keep her. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Pretty much the same as every other trail mission. The difference here is that instead of going through wide roads, you're going through pavements, so I highly suggest going at a much slower pace, and playing this on easy mode, as your chances of messing up is actually quite high, not to mention that this is actually a big bike. Remember my criticism from the previous part, right? Yeah, that carries on to this one, and not to mention that the bike is quite thick, so even a slight glaze at the end of our bike is enough to topple you over because you lose valuable seconds. Completing this mission unlocks the same motorbike, which is known as the wave bar concept, which is based on the real life counterpart Henderson Motorcycle, who are popular for creating large and fastest bikes ever during those times. Now comparing those bikes to the bikes we get today, they are quite massive, but I'll be honest, I'm happy that the bikes are quite thin these days. Now this is the final side mission. It can be found at the desk of Salieri and the upper office, and it can be unlocked after completing the chapter Death of the Yard. And no, you can't access this mission unless if you completed every other side missions that the game has to offer, so be sure to complete those before you get to this one. Now this has some lore building, so I'll just dive into it quite quickly. You read the letter and this is what it reads.
Dear friend, at last the time has come for us to meet. You have proven yourself worthy of my special gift. You won't have to go far to take the call, just a couple blocks away in Little Italy. Herbert Baskerville.
Which prompts you to go to this location of the map. To answer this telephone, it gives you this.
Congratulations, my friend. The ritual is almost complete. Now you must kill me to receive my final gift. Try to ignore the fact that I have a dog's head. That's just my look. It's not a curse or anything.
Basically, what you've been doing till now was nothing short of a ritual for the guy, Herbert Baskerville. You'll have to kill him now to complete the ritual. He also hints the fact that he has a dog-like mask and just says that it's his look, it's not a curse. In other words, it's his disguise. He doesn't want to reveal who he actually is, but once the mission is over, your camera then redirects to show Herbert Baskerville himself. This is the guy who's been giving his side missions until now, and now the time has come for you to kill him. You'll need a decently fast car, not too fast like that of Crazy Horse above, but a mediocre one. I personally use the Smith-Morey one, but it's up to you to choose. You'll have to chase him down during this long sequence, which the game also tries to push you into shooting his car, but it's not really worth it because he is going to survive anyways. He's gonna drive all the way to the nearby dock, where his men will be waiting for, and you will have to take them out all while at the same time making sure Baskerville doesn't escape. Once you completed the mission, the game cuts to black and reopen, with you now wearing the exact same costume Herbert Baskerville was wearing. Basically, you're fulfilling the cycle of the so-called ritual of wearing masks, giving random missions to a random person. When the person completes all the missions assigned, the next task is to kill you. Once he kills you, he wears the mask and the cycle continues. Now this isn't too well done in this game, especially when I try to look up for any hints on lore building. There isn't really a lot apart from only these missions, So it's safe to say that this is a never-ending cycle that sadly Tom has involved in this. And that brings us to the end of all the side missions. They do offer pretty interesting vehicles that you can use during story modes, and while the game doesn't force you to use a particular vehicle. But however, the costumes are limited and you can't even change it when you feel like it. But it does add a nice aspect to freedom rather than just being a playground where you can do whatever you want. I really like this, showing that Tom can do other things during freedom instead of just sticking to what the story is all about. In Chapter 5, Fair Play, after meeting Lucas Bertone and him remodifying the car that you provided him to, this is what he says at the end.
Hey Tom, just want to thank you for stepping in like you did. I had 6 months rent riding on that race. I'd be homeless now if not for you.
I just did what the Don asked, Lucas.
Well, you gotta let me find a way to repay you. Stop by my garage when you get a chance. I might have a line on something that'll turn $1 for you.
Sure, thanks.
Now he isn't joking when he said that, as if you try to visit him during the free roam, he greets you saying the following.
Tommy, just the guy.
You doing okay, Lucas?
Oh, I'm good. Business is booming. And I found a way to pay you back for that score at the track. You like fast cars, right?
Who doesn't?
I got guys all over town. They tell me what they seen driving where and where they might be headed. All the latest models, all the best cars. So, whatever I hear, I thought I'd give to you.
What's the catch?
No catch. You just gotta find them. All the details are on the wall.
This leads you to a table with 5 poster cards, where each of these posters will have 5 different missions. Now these missions will unlock 5 exclusive cars that you've never seen before. Now these aren't more of like side missions that you're used to, it's more like a collectible, but however collecting these cars can offer you a good advantage, as some of them are quite unique looking and some of them are quite fun to drive in. The vehicles that you will be able to unlock are the Disorder, the Leicester V16 Apollon, the Flamespear, the Manta Prototype, and the Trottenberg Sport. Now I wish that I could go into much more detail into this by showing the gameplay, but unfortunately the video that I have recorded got corrupted, so I unfortunately don't really have much to show. But however, I will recommend the video released by Mafia Videos, who have covered this in depth by showing the location and the car itself. Most of the cars here are quite unique, especially the Manta Prototype, which you've definitely seen during the mission Alien Infiltration. But apart from that, all these vehicles are quite unique and you can never really access them. But however, once you complete this mission, there is no way to replay it ever again. This only applies to Lucas Bertone's missions, as no matter how many times you start a new game, the free roam will still remain the same and you cannot really try to gather those cars again if you already collected them. And yeah, that comes to the end of this review on Mafia Definitive Edition. I know I haven't covered the 2 aspects, and that is the collectibles and the achievements. And that is because the collectibles add not much details into the lore. The only thing that I can find quite interesting about these collectibles are the cigarette cards, which contain information about certain characters and often a one-liner dialogue. They are quite fun to collect, but however they are just not worth mentioning because they add nothing apart from just, a handful of summaries or just a one-liner that you probably have already heard of in the video game. And apart from that, the achievements are pretty much straightforward. There's nothing hidden, and they're quite easy to achieve, provided that you decide to grind the game a bit and try to collect every single thing that's present in the game. For me, even though I'm like 52.5 hours in, I'm still like, I'm still way away from even close to like completing it. Like especially the collectibles, I think I'm only like 60% done. And there's still a lot more that needs to be collected, especially for the mystery foxes, which are one of the few things that I'm yet to collect.
What do they call you, son?
Thomas. Thomas Angelo, sir.
I should have took off there and then. But I couldn't go back to being a nobody.
You hear that, Frank? The kid wants my permission to get into a fight.
I always pay my debts, son. You know that.
This is what you were looking for at Polly's.
Here's your cut. It's more than you deserve.
Sam. You killed him.
Oh, come on. I'm kidding. Hey, I couldn't have done this without you. I know that. Go home, celebrate with Sarah. Come by my place in the morning. We'll split up the dough.
Polly.
He's not going to be able to think straight for weeks. See, that's the difference between me and Morello. I'm a businessman. I do everything with this. Every decision I make is what's good for the business and my boys. Morella is a hothead, and all that anger burns out the brain. And when he gets mad, he gets stupid.
Oh, you're not gonna need that, sir. The tires are just fine. His grill's a little bent up is all. I mean, I got a cousin I can...
Good. Because you need to think about your career here. Look, Paulie's hit his ceiling. He's the guy we want in a tussle, but he's not smart enough to run anything.
Yeah. I don't care what Sam says. I'm getting that score.
Sam is loyal, but he has no vision.
Boss and I worked it out last night. We got a plan. Now, I'm not saying it's a good plan, but it won't get us killed. Probably.
But you tell me. You could run this town someday.
So yeah, that's pretty much it from my end, and hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I really do apologize for the video being 2 hours long, as my initial aim was to try to keep it within an hour, but unfortunately it exceeded. I'll do my best to keep my videos within an hour while at the same time maintaining this level of detail in my next review. In the meantime, if you guys have any thoughts, feelings, criticisms, or even if you just blatantly want to leave a comment in this video, please do show in the comment section below. Do like the video if you like it, dislike the video if you don't like it, and I'll be seeing you guys in my next review. Peace out.